Cool, cool.
All right, can you hear me now?
There we go. We are working
Uh,
beautifully.
we had a computer failure there.
No problem. No problem at all. I was worried it was my end. Usually it's my end, so good to know
No,
what
not in
happens to
this
other
case.
people.
It was, what it is the studio computers that I use for audio and all that. I can't restart them all the time, and if
Okay.
they go too long without a restart, they get all discombobulated, and that's all it was.
I got you. Yeah, you were sounding like an alien from somewhere back here.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's actually pretty cool talking with a real life alien, which is a question I'm going to have later on, just in a little
All
bit.
right.
Appreciate you doing this. Whoever, if you're watching, I am joined by futurist and science fiction author John Michael Godier, who happens to have two of the best YouTube channels that are out there. Extremely super easily digestible for someone like me who really can comprehend and take in things better visually and through audio. My generation is we're kind of all like that, but um, yeah. Thank you for doing this. First off, thank you so much.
Well, first of all, hello everybody out in the audience, and yeah, I'm one of those science YouTubers.
Yes, sir. You are one of the best. Probably
Well,
the yeah. No, for sure.
that's a question. That's an open question.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's set for me though. I want to ask you if you have any new books you're working on right now, or any that you're set to release soon.
Well, I do. I have one in the works, but planning on releasing a book and actually writing it are two different things. So it's really about what time I can get free in my day in order to write on that book. And with two YouTube channels, that gets there's only so many hours in the day. But I'm hoping to get a book out by the end of the year.
Awesome. Awesome. Your readers. I'm notoriously bad reader. I have pretty bad ADHD. I'll be honest. So reading books is kind of difficult for me. So I grew up kind of, like I said, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos to um, kind of grasp these ideas. That's another thing I wanted to ask. Do you think that with the current generation, it's clearly different from past? It's just a night and day difference. The new generation is ingesting so much data, basically,
Oh,
for lack of a better term, that do you think that it's going to have even maybe a physical effect on the brain, or any sort of effect on the brain, or how it works in the future?
well, I don't know about an effect on a brain, but I think there'll be a huge effect on society. Because imagine it, it's about the times you live in, right? So if you have to absorb all of this data, all of this information, a constant flow of information from your phone and everything else, that's a little bit different of an existence than the pre-internet days when I grew up. So it's a different paradigm, but it's not a bad thing. It's just the progression of technology and society. So while you guys may have a whole lot on your minds at the same time, I mean, look around. Things aren't so bad, are they?
Right, right. That's a good perspective. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. I mean, my parents will tell me all the time too. It's like if you want to learn something about a subject, like I'm fascinated with ancient civilizations, Egypt, Peru, and stuff like that. And just to learn a fraction of what I could learn, um, even on YouTube. YouTube is, a lot of people say they'll laugh at you or whatever. Oh, you saw it on YouTube or whatever. But there's so many knowledgeable people on this platform that it's really, and you're getting professors, you're getting Harvard professors, you're getting all sorts of people that are delivering straight to the dome, basically lectures that you would at one point have to attend college to listen to. So I think that it's super cool that we have this. Basically, it's really fascinating. Um, can I ask you what age, if you can remember, did you first become fascinated with science fiction in general, astronomy, and kind of everything in between in those fields?
Must have been around age 10, 11, 12. And what sticks in my mind was seeing Saturn through a telescope, a little tiny telescope that my parents bought me. And I look at this dot in the sky, and all of a sudden I see its rings, even in a tiny little telescope. And that sparked off a lifelong love of astronomy. But I'm also a history guy too. I'm also fascinated with ancient civilizations. The whole thing goes hand in hand, sort of. You know, if you're interested in one, you tend to be interested in the other.
100%. And like for me, I grew up on a farm, Upper Michigan. I was talking to Ross, your producer, Ross Campbell, great guy, and I appreciate him for setting this up. But just out there, you can see the whole Milky Way galaxy. It's just no light pollution whatsoever, and you start looking up at the stars. I mean, classic constellation Orion and stuff like that, which there's all these theories that connect to Egypt and stuff. And I was always fascinated with Egypt. So you're definitely right that it all kind of goes hand in hand. And if you're like super deep into it, like most of these ancient cultures, they were completely their monuments and their oral traditions and stuff. They were completely fascinated and had kind of a amazing knowledge of the stars for their time, for what we think, what for the technology we think they had at the time. So definitely agree with that they go hand in hand. Can I ask you where you grew up specifically?
I grew up two places, Portland, Oregon, and St. Louis, Missouri, and just depends on what point of childhood you want to talk about. But yeah, I was born in St. Genevieve, Missouri, in 1975, and at some point when I was 9 or 10, moved to Oregon, and then moved back to Missouri, and that's pretty much my origins.
Awesome, cool. Origin story, I love it. Were you in a heavily populated area? Were you able to, you said you were able to observe the stars? Was it super clear or?
Actually, up there it was clear, but back in those days, when I would have first have done that, I would have been living in Portland, and it was a lot darker skies than now, you know, because that place has exploded into development. But back then it wasn't so bad. Yeah, I mean, you can see Saturn from middle of New York if you want,
Yeah,
if bright enough. So, what I really probably I do remember when I think back on it, going to dark sky locations and seeing the Milky Way was affecting, especially in like Colorado or someplace like that where you have very dark sky conditions. But um, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad. Astronomy was possible.
yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, yeah, I never had a telescope. I mean, probably just a little, even Walmart brand one, just to basically see a little bit more than you could. Even binoculars was a step up and really fun to do. Um, but yeah, it's just love that stuff. Are there what were some of your favorite authors that in a child, as a grown man, and how important were they in influencing where you are today, basically?
There's a big elephant in the room there, Arthur C. Clarke, um, who is by far my biggest influence in both writing hard science fiction and also doing my YouTube channel, believe it or not. But I also read Asimov, Heinlein, um, a lot of the classic guys. Where I'm weak is the modern stuff. You know, other people that are writing because I don't have enough time. I'm always writing, so I don't have enough time to read. And when I do want some sci-fi, I tend to go to streaming. You know, go see what's going on with the Mandalorian and things like that. So
Definitely.
so it's not really, it's about time. But if I had to say, my influences are the same influences as many people in science fiction, which is Arthur C. Clarke, Heinlein, and Asimov.
Awesome. That's super interesting. Can you name a few of their books in general, or even besides them, a few even non-science related books that are your favorite or
Well,
were your favorite?
I'd say that my favorite book of all time, stepping outside of science fiction, all right, I can give you two answers to that. But stepping outside of science fiction, my favorite book of all time is The Shining by Stephen King. I absolutely adore that book. And then if I had to bring in the science fiction, I'd say Childhood's End by Arthur Clarke or 2001, that whole series, including the movie, which is very different from the books. I would say Foundation trilogy by Asimov. There's a bunch of them. But I can tell you one thing that your listeners probably have never heard of. My favorite short story is called Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. And he wrote it back in the 1930s. And it eventually became what would be the movie um, The Thing. But the actual short story itself from the 30s is an amazing read in how he wrote it. So, and I think it's public domain, so you probably can find it on the internet. But pretty interesting.
Very cool. I saw somewhere on online. It was a while back too. That apparently one of your favorite books also is Lord of the Rings. Is that true?
Oh yes, that's fantasy though. But oh yeah, I absolutely love the Lord of the Rings and that whole world. And I haven't
Right.
just read that. I've read The Hobbit. I've read the Silmarillion and all of the notes that J.R.R. Tolkien left. And yeah, I absolutely love that stuff.
Very cool. Also, I'm also deep into that stuff. Even we do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with my siblings, so we like to incorporate different names and traditions from the books and even the movies. Do you like the Peter Jackson version of Lord of the
Oh
Rings?
yeah, monumental, gorgeous, gorgeous movies. And I liked The Hobbit too. I liked everything that Peter Jackson did with that. I thought it treated the novels very well. And of course, there's some things from the novels that aren't in the movies, and you have to truncate things and all that. But overall, it felt like the Lord of the Rings to me, and that's what's important.
Definitely, I agree. I agree. And there's a new series coming out on Amazon, sort of before all of that happened in Middle Earth. So I'm wondering if that's going to be good or not. Who knows? A lot of stuff nowadays is kind of my opinion not so great. But next question.
It's it's hit or
Sorry about
miss.
that.
It's
Hit
hit
or
or
miss.
miss. Yep.
Definitely, yeah. Could be good. I just watched a show, just random random show. It's called Station 11, which is kind of a very good show. If anyone's watching and wants a good show, it's on HBO Max. So Station 11 is a good one. It's actually based in Michigan, which is where I am. So that's a fun one. Science fiction movies. What are some of your favorite uh science fiction movies and science fiction, science, space travel, sort of any of those roads? And which ones do you think get it right? One that comes to mind, my mind is Interstellar. That's basically one of my favorite movies, and I think that there was even some things published about their interpretations and visual effects, basically of what they showed a black hole to be and look like.
Interstellar is a lost opportunity because you're absolutely right. One of the producers of Interstellar was Kip Thorne, who is a prominent physicist, and he put a lot of work into the representation of Gargantua, the black hole, and the wormhole to make them look as close as we understand to what they would really look like out in space. The problem is that I guess they just wanted to finish the movie and they put a bunch of very unrealistic planets in there that don't really reflect how exoplanets are. So it was pretty weird. But fundamentally, it was a good try. The one if I had to pick a favorite though, I'd say 2001. Because there he was, Stanley Kubrick was able to actually take that to the fullest extent of his idea, and even for its time, it's pretty realistic.
Right, right. I like that one as well. If say aliens, intelligent life, whatever you want to call it, say aliens were came here from a different galaxy or somewhere interstellar, and they were here to observe us or do whatever, contact us. What would be the benefit if they returned to their home planet and everyone was dead due to relativity? Are there any ideas of how to bypass this or how to any solutions to that?
Well, the short answer is send a machine that doesn't care about time. Don't go yourself, but the thing is, we have to remember when we're talking about questions like this, we have to remember that we only live for 80 some odd years, on average. What does that change if you have an alien that lives for 5,000 years or 10,000 years? Then it's a little bit different of a story, and we don't know anything about any of that. But the reason to come here in my mind, would be science and study. All of a sudden they see this civilization on Earth and they're like, wow, there's somebody else, in the galaxy with us. So they come and they watch us, and perhaps interact with us at some point. So maybe that's as simple as it really is, that you just do it for science and history, because they're going to probably have historians and, true anthropologists studying mankind. And then, so I think that would be the reason, is to just watch us. But there's another one: make sure we don't develop any technology that's extremely dangerous to the rest of the galaxy, like a generalized artificial intelligence that could escape and basically destroy any civilization in the galaxy. So they might also do it for security reasons and watch us.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree. And when people bring up the idea of like saying that we would be like ants to them or whatever, and they would just look past us as nothing, because when you see a ant trail on the ground, you just walk right past it and think nothing of it. But we have television shows, we have people who spend their entire careers or entire lives studying sometimes literally just ants. So just based on that, I think that they would have a far bigger interest in these hairless apes, which we are. On the AI, the general artificial intelligence question, do you think that if there is a singularity event, and one of my favorite people who I've watched interviews with, I think he's been on Joe Rogan Experience, Ben Gordzel, he's in Japan or China right now, and he's one of the lead he's basically the developer of some of these AI systems, and really talks about the singularity a lot, and says that it's really possible. If it's possible and it does happen, do you think it will be easily integrated into our society, or do you think ideas like Elon Musk has even had and talked about being scared of it? Do you think that it could run away from us?
I think the important thing to remember in anything dealing with the singularity is to remember that it is still under our control, right? We can choose to do it, or we can stop it and say, nope, we're not going to go down that path. And there have been instances in recent human history where we could have went down a path, but we chose not to. And one example of that would be cloning. Nobody's done it. And everybody's like, well, we probably shouldn't do that. So maybe we will put the brakes on society before we ever hit the singularity. Because the one thing that the hallmark of the singularity, at least as Kurzweil put it out there originally, was that at some point it becomes unpredictable and incomprehensible as to what actually happens to your civilization. Well, that seems to me to be something that we might want to, collectively all get together and have coffee over and decide if that's really what we want to do. But that's going to be up to your generation, not
Yeah,
mine.
right. Yeah. And yeah, there's some that aren't so hopeful about my generation. But I think that's a good idea to have a conversation about that. And even world leaders should be doing it right now. On the on the topic of the previous topic, uh, can you explain the difference between biosignatures and technosignatures, and what is more likely? Because you talk about that all the time. That's honestly a couple years ago is when the first time I heard or was able to comprehend and really be like, oh, 100%, he's right. Um, Technosignatures and biosignatures, and which is more likely to yield results in trying to find an alien life, whether it's uh, advanced, whether it's just at its infant stages of life.
Well, a biosignature is simply the detection of some kind of evidence of a biosphere. So if you're looking at Earth at any point since the great oxygenation event billions of years ago on Earth, you would see something called a chemical disequilibrium in the atmosphere, meaning that we got a lot of oxygen that shouldn't be here and we got a lot of methane that shouldn't be here. And the best explanation for the presence of those gases, which are reactive, oxygen's really reactive, is a biosphere, plants, plants photosynthesizing away. and Earth has been visible in that way for a very, very long time. So, well enough that anybody in the galaxy knows, right? They know that there's a biosphere here if they've ever looked at this exoplanet, if you want to call Earth an exoplanet. A technosignature is a technological civilization. Now, bear in mind, we have only been emitting technosignatures from this planet and our civilization for just a little over 100 years with radio. So it's much harder to see a technosignature in the sense that, you know, most planets, if our planet is any guide, most planets, the civilization is undetectable until it gets to a certain stage. And just like we were. I mean, as you know, we were building pyramids 5,000 years ago, but you can't see those from a distance. But you can see the radio and the technology.
Right, right. I love that. It's super fascinating, and it's something that it's you kind of forget about, where it's you think that the only way that we're gonna figure this out, find life, or life in the universe to find us, is for them to hear the first broadcast of whatever it was. I think it was Hitler giving a speech or something crazy like that. So,
Believe it or
uh,
not, they wouldn't even hear that one. You would
really,
have had, yeah, you'd have had trouble picking that one up outside of Berlin. The transmission was just so weak. That was 1936 at the Olympics, and it was just a very, very, very weak transmission. What they're gonna hear is the radar. All of our very powerful radar that we emit. That's what they'll see.
how big of
And
sorry, how big of a telescope or receiver would you need to pick up something like that, if you're say from on the outer edge of our galaxy, or a few hundred light years away? How big would that need to be? Is it easily detectable, or is it something you'd have to directly focus, like know you're pointing it at Earth, or
well, your alien civilization faces two problems. Number one, they need to know where to look. So, assuming that they looked here and saw a biosignature of Earth's biosphere, they're like, well, we should keep an eye on that planet. But then they have to know when to look, when they actually would see one of our powerful transmissions, and that's not that easy. You'd have to be monitoring it 24/7. The other thing is they need a very large telescope, radio telescope. Um, if you're 100 light years out, which is about as far as our radio is out, goes out there, you're going to need a radio telescope the size of Chicago to do it. But who says aliens don't have that?
right, right, yeah, they might have a telescope the size of a planet or a moon. Who
Yeah,
knows?
we don't know.
Can you tell me what Tabby's star is?
Oh yeah, good old Tabby Star, KSC 8462852. That number, that star's phone number is burned into my brain after so many years of talking about it. Now Tabby Star is a an F3 giant star, still in the main sequence, pretty normal in every way, except it experiences radical dimming for an unknown reason. And initially, when the astronomers took a look at it, the idea was this is probably dust, which it probably is dust. You have to caveat this that this probably isn't evidence of an alien technosignature, but it's the closest we've ever seen to one, right? To the point where it's really difficult to explain it to this day. The thing is that initially it looked like it might be what you would expect from an alien technosignature, perhaps a civilization that's in the process of building a Dyson swarm or Dyson sphere. Doesn't really look like that anymore. We don't know what it is, what's going on. Best guess is some kind of disintegration or evaporation process of a planet or a group of cold comets or something like that. So it's just something that we haven't seen before. But now we kind of have because people have been looking for other examples and they see them, but here's the weird thing they cluster in space for no good reason. In other words, they're all nearby each other. We haven't the slightest idea why that is.
That's crazy. I had no idea that's that they're clustering like that. There's no current ideas of what that could be, of why. Is it something to do with black holes or something? Maybe pulling gravity. Maybe they're all near this one area.
Absolutely, absolutely no idea. And it statistically appears to be. The it statistically appears to be real, the clustering, right? But as to what would cause that, there's no good explanation other than maybe an alien civilization. But the thing is, you can't go that far yet. You
Right.
have to you have to eliminate all natural possibilities before you put an alien civilization on the table.
Right. Um, Betelgeuse, seen some stuff about that. That is that currently dimming and getting brighter? Is that sort of the same sort of thing? I've seen a few videos from other people.
It returned to normal. What it did, what it's thought to have done, is the dimming episode it went through. It belched out a huge cloud of carbon, and that was blocking light, and that has now dissipated, and it's back to normal. This isn't surprising because Betelgeuse is a very, very ridiculously violent star, very short-lived, very violent star, and it can do all kinds of brightness changes and all sorts of weirdness. But it doesn't really mean anything in the long run. It was just it just belched essentially.
I got you. I want to talk about Avi Loeb and Oumuamua. Do you think what are your ideas on what Oumuamua could have been? And is it possible to maybe catch up to Oumuamua? Is there any form of could we do that? Is it possible to catch up? Maybe I know there's ideas for light sails or using nanotech or some form of that to make something travel near the speed of light or basically the speed of light, um, using lasers and such like that. Is there any possibility of that?
Oh yes, that's a loaded question though. So let me take that one in stages. First of all, Oumuamua. The question has to be asked if we see something really strange like that, right? Something bizarre, which it was. Do we go in the direction of making a bunch of stretches to get to a natural explanation, which is what happened? Or do we seriously entertain that maybe it was an alien light sail? I don't think it was. I think it was something weird, some phenomenon of ice or something like that that we've never seen before. But the problem is that none of the natural explanations have been very satisfying. They've been all over the place, and they're almost as preposterous as saying it's aliens. So I don't think we know what it was. Now, can we catch up to it? Yes, absolutely. There are scientists working on plans to catch up with Oumuamua and take a closer look. You'd need to get really fast, and you'd need to do a lot of engineering and planning and everything, and it's going to take years, but we can still do it. And we actually will still be able to do it for a very long time. It just depends on how much money everybody wants to spend.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's something weird though, and let me throw this out there. That was the first confirmed interstellar object we've ever seen. Was a Momoa confirmed? The second
Really.
one we saw, yeah, that was the first one, and we literally saw it at the very first moment we could. You know, then we saw another one, Comet Borisov, which is also an interstellar object, and it is the most normal looking comet that you could ever see. It looks just like a solar system comet, but Oumuamua doesn't. Oumuamua doesn't look like anything we've ever seen. So there must be, for us to have seen that at the very first moment we could, there must be a population of these objects out there. They must pass through the solar system regularly. If we don't see such a thing as certain telescopes come online, Vera Rubin Observatory, etc., that are going to take all sky surveys rapidly, if we don't see another object like that, then it's a new WAF signal. I mean, we may never know what it was. Um, Now, as far as going to other star systems using light sails, yeah, that's absolutely possible. That's Breakthrough Starshot, where you can make a little tiny microprobe and put it at the end of a laser beam and send it at 15, 20% the speed of light and see another star system in 20 or 30 years.
That's absolutely crazy. It's so awesome. Science fiction is just becoming real life science in real
It
life.
really is, which is why I envy your generation because you're going to get to see more of it than I will. But unless I live to be several thousand, we don't know what's going to
Yeah,
happen with
who
my
knows?
next
Exactly.
generation.
Exactly. Yeah, that'd be so cool. You're like 1,000 years old. You're like, all right, welcome back to Event Horizon. That'd be nuts.
Doing
I
a
love it.
YouTube channel for 1,000 years, I could probably do that, actually. Thinking on that, I could probably do it for 1,000 years because it's really fun. Well, if
Yeah,
you're doing it.
but yeah, and there's enough ideas to talk about. There's going to be plenty. There's everything's changing constantly.
Oh,
So
and there has never been a more exciting time in human history than right now.
I think about
Um,
that. I think about that a lot too. It's the odds of being born. Like I'm still thinking. Me and my brother talk about ideas like this a lot. Just being the fact that I wasn't born in like 1540 or something, and that I'm alive right now with our technology, with all of this stuff, is just absolutely mind blowing.
yeah, it blows my mind too. I mean, for all we know, we could have been born during the plague, and that was it.
Exactly.
um, or the Roman times, and we could have been sent off to battle or something, and that's all she wrote.
Right.
But yet we get this time. You realize that the two largest rockets the human species has ever launched happens in the next 2 to 4 months. Two of them. Saturn
Elon
V
Musk.
gets it. Elon Musk, but also the federal governments. So we have two rockets that beat Saturn V in 1969. We got two of them, and the Elon Musk one beats it by twice. It's double the power. And then the SLS, Space Launch System, is like 15% higher thrust. So two of the largest rockets ever launched by humanity, the two largest rockets, happened this year.
That's incredible. Super cool. I know in uh, Elon Musk's, it was a biography, I believe. They used the acronym BFR, and I'll let
BFR, yeah.
big F and
Yeah,
rocket. So
big effing rocket. Well,
yep,
it exists now. It's sitting down in Boca Chica, Texas. It is built and sitting on the launch pad, waiting for the government to approve a orbital launch.
absolutely incredible. Do you think on that, do you think that Elon Musk, do you think it's feasible? Do you think it's actually with this new, if you want to call it a space race, which it definitely feels like,
Oh, it is.
um, yeah, do you think that it's possible that we can actually get to Mars, that we can do at least a fraction of what Elon Musk wants to do? And do you think it's going to be, do you think it's going to surpass what we did with the moon in the
Oh,
60s
yeah.
and 70s?
See, what we did with the moon was motivated by the political situation in the time between the United States and Russia and all that. And it was way ahead of its time because we had a political motive to do it. This is different. This is natural, right? We have these technologies because Elon Musk and SpaceX can make money launching rockets. So it's a much more natural progression. Whether he can make money and found an economy on Mars, well, we're going to find out. But the point is, he's built a rocket that takes us anywhere in the solar system directly. We don't have to employ um, slingshots and things like that as much as we used to when we have gigantic rockets like this. I mean, think about that. This thing could transport 100 people to Mars. We've never done anything like that before.
It's super, so it's so cool. It's the coolest thing ever. And another thing is just the absolute inspiration and hope it kind of gives to especially my generation. Just because I've since a kid watched videos on the moon landings and all that stuff, and then just the stagnation, the just not going back to the moon. Not No one was interested in the in NASA
Oh
programs,
God, I
and it
lived.
was just
Oh,
yeah,
dude, I lived through that for decades with
yeah,
no progress at all. And I remember in the '80s watching the shuttle launches and thinking we're taking a step back, you know, in capability. And we gave up this gigantic Saturn V rocket system and replaced it with an orbital system. And I understand why, but and I like the shuttle. That was what I grew up with. But the thing is, then we retired the shuttle and we didn't have anything for years, right? We were paying the Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, to transport us to the International Space Station. That's changed. We now have multiple human launch systems back. And at no time in my life has it been more exciting. This is the most exciting. Well, take a look at the Falcon Heavy launch, where Elon shot a car, Tesla up into space. So these things have not happened before. So we're living in much, much headier times than we have since the 1960s, before I even existed.
Oh, it's so exciting. Like it gives me chills almost, especially that video. I know I don't know if it was the original one, but someone had Starman by David Bowie playing while
Oh,
it
that was Elon. That was
was
actually
it.
done live,
I
yes,
love
and
it.
it was very apt, and it had all kinds of sci-fi references. Don't panic, there was a towel in the Douglas Adams type thing with a towel in the glove compartment, and there was even a tiny Tesla, like a Hot Wheel, sitting on the front of the dashboard there, and it was just all designed to energize everybody.
Right.
And I think it did just that because I was like, well, we we got something going here.
Definitely. Yeah. And who do you think was in the spacesuit? Do you think that was Elon's mortal enemy or what?
Jeff Bezos was not in that spacesuit, sir.
Right.
No, I think the spacesuit. Well, there's certain things I can't say on air, but there were a lot of jokes about that. What
Yeah.
who might be in the spacesuit, who might be in the trunk, but nah, I think it was empty.
Yeah.
But it might not have been. It might have been. I don't know.
Do you think they had any sensors or anything in there to sort of test equipment while
What would have
doing that?
been what would have been creepy is if they'd have put a robotic arm in there and it moved
Oh,
during the launch.
that would legit. That would have freaked some people. That would have been a conspiracy theory for like
That
years.
would many years.
A hundred
Um,
percent.
I don't know. I if I ever get to interview him, I'll ask him for you.
Please do, and I hope you do. I bet there's a pretty good shot you could. That would be an interview of the ages. That would be is that would that be your top guest, or have you had your
Uh,
top guest already? Besides me, of
Carson,
course.
give me yes, Carson, give me like 1 minute. I need to go use the restroom, and I'll be right
Okay,
back. So
of
you'll want
course.
to delete this part, but I'll be right back, and I'll give you an answer.
No worries. Thank you.
Almost back, but I just realized that you can't see me. Now you can.
There we go. What is up? Now we got a face. Let's go.
Refill my beverage.
No problem.
See you in college, man. What do you do?
Right now, no, I am not. I'm an unfortunate college dropout of a technical school. I was going to go for working on wind turbines, and figured out I was kind of afraid of heights and stuff, so kind of dropped out of that. But right now I work for Pepsi, the company Pepsi. So
Welcome to the club of college dropouts.
yeah, it's I'm in good company then. That's good.
All right.
Welcome back, sir.
So let's see. What'd you ask? The guest, the biggest guest. That would, Elon Musk would probably be the biggest one I could do. I, you could always go higher and interview the president or Vladimir Putin or something like that, but that's not what I do. So
Right.
within my sphere of my shows, it would probably be Elon Musk. But I don't want to say that because you never know. You know, who knows what will happen. There could be somebody
Exactly.
that comes on the scene that changes it all.
Right. Definitely. I'm gonna go back real quick to the when we were talking about light sails. Are there any ideas right now or any solutions to how you would slow down um uh whatever piece of
Yeah.
technology is traveling to where you want it to go? Are there any
Well,
ideas?
that's the eternal question because all of the best we can do right now is a flyby. And that's all we've ever been able to do. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were both flybys, and you just couldn't stop. Um, and it's ultimately, it's even a question with the Alcubierre warp drive. If you could get that going, how do you stop it? And there's really no ready answer. Um, the only thing we can do is send a big Battlestar Galactica type thing that has a chemical rocket that can slow it down and put it into orbit. But that's a long way off for us.
Right. I've heard, I don't know if it was on your channel, but I've heard the idea of even using black holes and its gravity to possibly slow down, or maybe not slow down, but definitely use
Gain an acceleration from
gain
it.
and acceleration. Right. Yeah.
Can I plug a third YouTube channel? Because I know
Yeah.
where this came from. Cool Worlds, which is put
Yes.
on by Dr. David Kipping, and it's his idea, and it's called the Halo Drive. And the idea is to gain an advantage from a binary black hole system in energy. And you can get spacecraft going very, very fast with a little boost from these orbiting black holes. Um, so the question is, should we be looking at black holes for technosignatures? Something like that. So yeah, that's where that came from. Dr. David Kipping of Columbia University.
Another great channel, super well produced. I really love his channel. I just watched his most recent one where he was discussing basically a fictional but really detailed description of what a civilization might have looked like in the past, even the first civilization, and how it might have died out and such. That's a really good video. I sent it to my brother. He was completely hooked on it right away. That was really cool. So, a great channel, great recommendation.
There
Um,
are there are no shortage of good YouTube channels.
right.
Uh, I have no short. I don't have to watch myself. I got plenty to watch, with other people. So I'm really uh, I'm stoked about where YouTube has gone as far as science channels go. I mean, we got so much. It's hard to keep up with.
Really is. It is. And I get home from work and it's like, all right, I only have so much time. All right, I'll listen to this. I'll listen to Event Horizon in the morning. I'll watch half of that. Oh, John just posted it on his own channel, and then Cool Worlds posts, and then every there's more I can name, but I'm blanking right now. But you're 100% right on that.
Oh, there's all kinds of them. Well, I mean, got to mention Isaac Arthur,
Yep,
and Parallax Nick, Dr. Brian Keating. There's just many Paul Matt Sutter, PBS Spacetime. There's many things I watch and enjoy.
definitely, definitely. I watch what's his name? I can't remember his name right now, but he's a Russian guy, and he goes
Anton Petrov.
Anton Petrov. Yes, thank you very much.
That's
Very
another good one.
knowledgeable. Yeah.
Hello, wonderful person.
Have you had yeah, hello wonderful person. Yeah. Um have you had him on the show yet?
No, he's. I mean, I've talked to him, but or messaged with him, but he's not really. Doesn't really want to.
Yeah,
Um, so it's sort of you know, but yeah, no, he it's an amazing channel.
definitely. Another one directly related to rockets and space travel is Scott Manley. He goes into detail.
Scott Manley, yeah,
Yeah.
and we got to toss Fraser Kane in there too.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
been around doing YouTube longer than any of us.
100%, definitely. Can I ask you a question about the Voyager that was just brought up,
Sure.
Voyager 1 and 2? Um, if that were to be found by an intelligent alien race, what are the odds that they would know what it means? And kind of more simply put, if do you think that the aliens do you think that they're it seems that the human form is in our galaxy anyway, in our universe, well, observable universe, things that we've seen, small sample is Earth. I guess it's all we have, but the human form seems to be kind of optimal for advancing basically in all forms. Do you think that these things, you think that the aliens could, do you think they'd look like bugs or something that we could like can't even imagine? Um,
Look at biodiversity on our planet, right? And we have everything from ants, like we mentioned earlier, 6 legs. We have centipedes. We have birds. We have crocodiles. We have us. With that level of massive variation in bioform, it's hard for me to imagine that an alien would look anything like us, you know, um, especially since our bipedal physiology stems originally from us evolving from a fish that had 4 fins. Well, that didn't necessarily have to be. So I think that it's anybody's question what a biological alien would look like. A technological alien probably would we would probably recognize that. It's a computer, um, and it might put it this way: if you saw an alien, a biological one, you may not exactly know what it is. You know, in the same way you might not know what a colony, a fungal colony is. You know, or something like that. But a machine, you're probably going to recognize that as such, which is a really terrifying thought if you think about it. You know,
right.
all powerful machine shows up in your star system and you're nothing to it. You know,
Yeah,
you're not even on the level of the ant at that point.
right. You're just basically sand that it's walking over.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make you sad? Because it seems like our it might even be nature. It might just be nature that we turn into technological beings basically. Does that make you sad, or what if these things don't have what what we've talked about for millions or thousands of years, like a soul basically?
I think we will put the skids on it before it ever gets to that level. I think we'll be like, because I don't think we'll give up our humanity, is what I'm saying. We will use machines for our advantage and exploration and things like that, and they have their uses. But the moment it redefines your species and you can no longer call yourself human, I think a whole lot of people are going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, I would agree. um Back on the aliens interpreting what we have on the Voyager 1 and 2, do you think they would be able to see these things? It seems like any technologically advanced thing that would be able to capture these things flying by through interstellar space. Um, it seems like they would be able to. It seems like language, anyways, is pretty easily decrypted. How do you feel about that?
I think Carl Sagan once sort of addressed this, and I would just restate that maybe somebody might find it out there and they might know to scrape their fingernail, or if they have one, across the Voyager record and maybe realize that there's some kind of something encoded there. But for them to actually put it on a record player and listen to it, they need ears and they need to hear, and they need to know the technology. So I don't know that they would find it. But if you're just looking at the cover, or for that matter, the Pioneer plaque, maybe they could work that out. Maybe they could say, okay, we know where the star system, where this object came from. We know, what they were doing. But at the same time, I really wouldn't want to tell an alien civilization, especially a very highly advanced one, what it can and can't do. So it may figure it out completely, and it was no big deal. And maybe they found like 20 of them, from all different civilizations throughout the galaxy, and they're like, why do they always send us these gold records? You know,
Yeah. Yeah, just they have like a museum full of gold records from all these different
and
civilizations.
that's as far as it ever goes. It's just a museum at the center of the galaxy of all of these records that civilizations have sent out, and that's all that anybody ever remembers of any of us.
Yep, manned by a few robots.
Manned
Just
by a couple of robots for
yep,
many millions of years.
I I love it. I love these ideas. We can have a few more questions here, and I really appreciate your time. We clearly went over the 5 to 10 minutes that I asked you for, so I
It's
really
all right
appreciate
though.
that.
It's all right. I'm stuck in an ice storm.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, it hit last night. So
Where are you at currently?
I'm in
Like,
St. Louis, and an
okay,
ice storm hit last night, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going out. So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, we got hit pretty bad yesterday, probably afternoon last night. It was hard getting home from work even. And then we
yeah,
got it was like ice first and then switched to snow and we got like 6 inches of snow. And so I got home. I had the alternator on my car's wrecked. So I was out there busting my knuckles and stuff, putting that in and had 5 minutes to go over to my aunt and uncle's and steal their hot tub for a few minutes before bed and then get up and get ready for this. But no, I'm with you. Just staying in. I'm gonna get some Buffalo Wild Wings tonight, though, just because I'm a fiend for wings. So
yeah. Good hot wings are special.
definitely, definitely, that's one of the little pleasures in life. Like I would travel if there was a galaxy that had the best hot wings or something like that, or a planet made of hot wings. I would be there. I'd be on the first ship. So
A planet made of hot wings.
yeah, could you
It
imagine that?
it wouldn't last very long.
No, no. Or maybe a planet inhabited by hot wings and they're all different. The different races are just the different sauce types, maybe.
Yeah, but then we got a real problem because what happens if they want retribution for all our eating of hot wings all these years?
That's a very good point. That is a very good point. I think there's a Simpsons episode where he has a dream of these don't he's eating donuts and then they hold him accountable, basically bring him to donut court and start eating him, I think.
See how that goes?
Yeah, that'd be sort of like Stephen Hawking. To Stephen Hawking, he's he had he was vocal as much as he can be with respect. He was vocal about it not we might not want to be found by alien civilizations because they might not have our best interest. They might not.
You can't ever know what their intentions are.
Right.
If you have a very distant alien civilization, you pick up a radio signal, and they're 500 light years away. You don't really have a problem, because that doesn't mean that they're coming for you. It just means that there's a civilization 500 light years away in space and time. That's not scary. What's scary is if they're here in your atmosphere with you, because they immediately, by virtue of having superior technology, are in control of everything.
That's yeah, is pretty scary. Do you think I mean the this kind of goes hand in hand without sounding too ancient alieny because it has a bad stigma, but it's kind of there's a lot of ideas on that show that the reason it's popular, it's kind of easily digestible for the public. And even though there's some far out ideas, which I like to listen to, it does bring a lot of actual knowledge about what these ancient civilizations talked about and worshipped and stuff like that. And do you think there's any credence to anything like that? Not saying that aliens came down and levitated rocks for them, but do you think that with their super advanced knowledge at least of the stars back then and complete devotion basically with these monuments and with their cultures to basically space, do you think there's any credence to any of the ancient alien, I guess, ideas?
I have not seen anything that convinced me or compelled me to conclude that. And in a way, I don't I don't really like it because it sort of cheapens and demeans what ancient peoples did, you know? It's a much more impressive thing if a bunch of human beings got together and built pyramids than it is with aliens levitating the rocks for them, you know? And it always proceeds from the assumption that ancient people couldn't do that, right? They couldn't possibly have done that. Therefore, it must be aliens. And I think that that is pretty cheapening for that civilization. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Um, it's like saying that, you know, somebody comes here and sees a concrete road and says, humans didn't build that. Well, yes, they did. They did it yesterday, you know?
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
so
a
I
couple of dudes
yeah,
that were hung over and just got off
exactly.
lunch did it. Yeah.
Hung over and just get, you know, I don't want to go down that road. And a good example of why I think that is the Roman Empire, right? They moved way bigger stones than the Egyptians did. There is monolithic columns in Rome still there that are made of granite from Egypt. So the Romans didn't just create a huge stone column, they moved it from Egypt to Rome, right? Which is way, way more technically challenging than building a pyramid in situ in Egypt is.
Definitely.
And the reason that we don't invoke ancient aliens is because the Romans told us how they did it. You know, the pulleys and that sort of stuff. It's never even invoked, despite it being some massive, massive stonework. It's never invoked because they left a record of what they did. Um, Egyptians, not so much. So you tend to get these people in there that hypothesize, well, maybe they had help. That said, I have absolutely no idea what effect it would have had if an alien civilization landed here in ancient times and somebody saw it. I don't
Right.
know. You know.
Are you familiar with I have another question after this regarding the ancient civilizations, but are you familiar with the I think it was in Zimbabwe. There was about a class of 50 plus school
Oh yeah,
children,
yeah. I've
and
heard of that.
you've heard of that one. What do you think about that?
No clue.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
I the one thing I will never do is say that people don't see unidentified flying objects or have experiences that they can't readily explain. I believe that people do. Now, what they are requires me to identify them, and that I can't do. But I can tell you this, you know, we don't know everything, and it's going to be a good long while before we do, you know, thousands of years. So I don't want to place everything off the table because there is a plausible way for an alien civilization to actually be here that doesn't require, you know, magical Clark tech or any technology like that. It just requires time. So I don't want to say it's not possible because it is. But there are other things that haven't really been thought of or are talked about. For example, the idea of prior technological civilizations on Earth being just as likely as a visiting alien civilization. But if it's from Earth, it's not an alien. You know, it's Earth life. So I don't think that the subject has been addressed in the right way. But you know, Dr. Loeb is changing that with the Galileo project, and let's find out what people are seeing and go from there.
Right. And that project is super important on that end. And the prior technological civilizations that could have inhabited Earth, us humans, I think that's super interesting. That's one of the main things I watch aside from channels like yours. I don't know if you're familiar with Graham Hancock.
Oh yeah, Graham Hancock and Robert Bauval and all those. I
Yeah.
am not in agreement with them,
Okay.
but at the same time, I have read their books and pondered it for sure. And I wouldn't have come to those conclusions, but it's interesting, and especially interesting, you know. And you sort of alluded to this when we first started. The idea of the three pyramids at Giza sort of aligning with Orion's belt, the stars, and there's a little bit of an offset. Who am I to say they didn't do that? Maybe they did.
Right. Right. There's a lot of there's and you can go deep into it, and there's a lot of they make a lot of connections that some might not agree with, and like you said, it's not there's ideas like that instead of aliens coming down and moving these pyramids, which there's ideas of, you know, a lost civilization of humans basically. I mean, you could call it Atlantis, you could call it anything like that. But when you look across the planet, basically, at times when they were supposed to be um, just people in loincloths with bronze or copper age tools and no communication, basically worldwide, like we have today. Um, that I mean, it would take half a lifetime to get from one end of the one part of the earth to the next. And then you find these monuments that some display uh, some of the same carvings. There's the same pyramid structures. If you go from Peru to Egypt, there's sort of the same. I know the casing stones on the Great Pyramid that are still there. They're so tightly together, and some of them they've been called polygonal masonry, especially in Peru. You can clearly see the difference if we're talking Peru, the difference between Inca, and the Inca there will even the remnants of the Inca culture will tell you that basically there was a people before them, and you can see the clear difference from just basically piled rough stone to build these walls, some mortar and stuff like that, and then you have these crazy interlocking stones that are several tons and stuff like
Few
that.
cultures got stonework like that, you know,
Yeah,
that down pat. It's amazing. I've seen that stuff where
yeah,
you can't even pass a sheet of paper between these
right,
joints.
right,
Um, but at the same time, I don't, like I said earlier, I don't want to deprive those people of their accomplishment and say, well, that must be aliens doing that. No, I want to
right.
say those people did something absolutely astonishing, and they should be, you know, they should be recorded in history and celebrated for it. And I say that about anybody. Another one would be, did you realize that in Australia, the Aboriginal peoples that live there understood how eclipses work, solar eclipses? I
Really,
mean, that's rare, but they
yeah,
worked out somehow that that they knew what it was. And I'm like, man, that's unbelievable.
right,
Um, so, and they came up with tricks on memory. For example, fact checking each other on stories, and these stories serve as maps to tell them how to get around, you know, their area and where the water is and things like that. I mean, if you've got people doing that, just imagine what ancient peoples were doing. You know that we wouldn't even think of in our technological civilization of today.
exactly. I mean, another person that I follow their work, he's been on Ancient Aliens. I mean, Graham Hancock has been on there as well. I don't subscribe to the alien ideas. I think that's more fun. I like the science fiction-y part of that. But I'm with you on not discrediting what these people could have been capable of back then. Brian Forrester, I got to interview him um, last week, which was a super cool conversation. Another kind of hero of mine in that field of going to these places. He has a YouTube
Yeah,
channel called
he's down
Hidden Inca Tours.
in Peru, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah,
He's right on the coast there. And he'll go every corner of the earth. He'll go Egypt. He'll go Peru. He'll go New Zealand. He'll go Baalbek in Lebanon. And his work, if you guys want to check that out, Hidden Inca Tours, Brian Forrester, and his Instagram, especially if you're just sitting, you're waiting for your tires to get rotated or something, you're getting an oil change or something, you want to look at something fascinating, go to his Instagram, because he'll just picture the pictures of these stones where you're like, wait a minute, they they were apparently this primitive culture, and then you have these crazy monuments, so it's just super interesting. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there was a lost technology. I don't know if they I mean, there's a lot of different theories, but that stuff to me is super interesting.
Well, it's interesting too to imagine yourself in their position as ancient cultures, and you know, how would I solve this problem? How would I solve that?
Yeah,
And what affected things like social things like religion play into it? You know, and define what you're doing. Because I mean, if you look at Egypt, a lot of those hieroglyphs are religious in nature. You know,
mhm,
talking about afterlives and things like that. So what does that? And remember, pyramids are tombs. You know, so what does that do to define what technology they pursued?
right,
But at the same time, you look, obviously they pursued agricultural technology because wheat, you know, that was king in the Nile Valley like that. even if one of the reasons the Romans conquered it. So it's fun, but I think my favorite part of all these kinds of questions is that on the one hand, we live in a very, very different civilization than they did, right? But on the other hand, if you read the writings of ancient people, and I would point out Marcus Aurelius with his surviving writings, it's still the same. You know,
Right.
human is human. Um, so I like to think that give the ancient peoples their due, but never forget that we are the most amazing civilization this planet has ever produced collectively. And we are
Right.
a global civilization that can go to space.
That's super fascinating. Do you think one more point on that? Another great YouTuber is Randall Carlson. He's a geologist and has done a lot of work with Graham Hancock. And just another idea on Egypt. And you're probably familiar with the Torrid meteor stream.
Yes. Oh, I'm
There's the
familiar with
there's
the
the
Torrid meters. Yes.
yeah, there's the idea that there was Randall Carlson has done a lot of work on figuring out, and if you watch his channels, I'd butcher it trying to explain, but basically that there was a cataclysm about 11,800, 12,000 plus years ago, and which possibly could have wiped out any of these people that possibly could have existed. And when you look at Egypt, according to him and according to a couple other geologists that I've just offhand looked at and listened to, they say that Egypt, the Giza Plateau area, the last time that was, because there's ideas that they were built upwards of 11,000 years to 12,000 years, these pyramids and even
Oh
the
yeah, the
Sphinx.
the ancient origin of things like the Sphinx and why the weathering is different in different areas. Yeah,
Right,
I've heard it, but I've never been convinced.
right.
But I've heard the claim.
Yeah, because according to these geologists, they say that Egypt was as bone dry 5,000, 6,000 years ago as it is today, and the last time that it was that there was flourishing vegetation and such like that was about 12,000 years ago, around the time that they think we got hit by one of these comets or meteors from the Torrid meteor stream. So that's a fun point.
Well, there's two things in that. I wouldn't want to go that far, but I can say that we have two mysteries. First of all, there does appear to be a crater, recent evidence of a crater underneath the ice sheet of Greenland that might, you know, relate to that somehow. And there's also some work, and this is really shaky, but there's also some work in the Middle East that seems to suggest some kind of catastrophic meteorite fall within uh, human prehistory that somehow may have gotten recorded, Sodom and Gomorrah, things like that.
Mhm.
Ah, gonna need a lot of proof for that, though, for, you know, the community at large to buy into.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't know where it's coined, but I don't know who said it first, but extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Carl
So,
Sagan, yeah.
yes,
And it shouldn't be a taboo, though. It shouldn't shut everybody down. Talk
right,
about it. Ask questions.
right,
Um, unfortunately, that's often happens. But we also want to find out what's real, what's reality.
exactly.
Um, so
100%. Couldn't agree more.
col- collect data and let's look at it.
Exactly. And on that point of kind of collecting the data and seeing what it's all about, another question about UFOs or UAPs, they're calling them now. The government release footage, and I've listened to the interview, quite a few of them. He's been on Lex Friedman podcast. He's been on Joe Rogan Experience. Commander Fravor of the USS Nimitz,
Yeah.
who claimed to have seen these objects with three other pilots, his co-pilot, and then another pilot and his co-pilot. And then these videos were released. One of I don't think all three of them were from the same incident. There was one called the Go Fast video, and then
The one video that's from this incident is the one that was taken by the second FA-18, which I could probably get you There's been a bunch of people that have come out that were colleagues in the Navy with David Fravor.
Hmm.
Um, and I just looking, James Slate.
Okay.
Anyway, so there were three planes, and Fravor was piloting one of them, and Alex Dietrich was piloting one of them, and then a third one went in with that camera that it was equipped with, and took the footage. And I saw some debunks of it, and then it seems like all the personnel that were actually trained to use these instruments came out and debunked the debunkers. And I honestly, man, have absolutely no idea what those people saw. But
Right.
it looks to me that they saw something, and there's classified radar data and things like that that we haven't seen. So what do you do with it? Now, I also am. I also wouldn't want to question um, multiple trained military people. You know, um, and I think they're telling the truth. I've seen consistency across everybody that's come out. So I just don't know what they saw. Um, it Whatever they saw was scary though,
Yeah.
you know, because I don't think you could, based on the accounts, I don't think you could say that was anything that us humans did, you know. But I'm not sure I want to pin that on an alien civilization either.
Right.
Maybe it's something that we don't know anything about, and that was the conclusions of Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek 50 years ago,
Mm.
was that we don't know. You know, maybe there's a paradigm difference, you know, a change, and that maybe there's something we don't know about the atmosphere or um, prior technological alien civilizations or native ones.
Right. I mean, there's
Who
you could
knows?
go.
Who knows?
Yeah, you could go down the road. You could go down so many paths. You could go down the path of they're basically the Watchers, and they're well, they could be us from the future. They could be the ones that, quote unquote, if there's a theory that
It's
we've been seeded by.
it's we used to call this God of the gaps thinking
Mhm.
because once you invoke aliens, then aliens can do anything.
Right. Yeah.
And so can, you know, but there are some people that think they're ghost lights, some people think they're demons. There's, you know, there's
Yeah.
we just don't have the data to definitively try to even identify these things without um, just getting better than what we got, you know.
Right.
Which is why I support Dr. Loeb's effort to get some decent pictures, you know.
Definitely. Definitely. Another fun thing. Do you know of Admiral Richard E. Byrd and Operation High Jump? Anything about that? You ever heard about that?
Well, I know who Bird was.
Okay, he's a sort of a sort of in the field, a famous decorated admiral. He apparently, and this came out in his diary, so you take it with a grain of salt whether it's real or not. But there's a claim, and there's even an interview with him, not saying what was in the
Oh,
diary.
oh, I'm digging way back. I remember this. I
Yeah,
don't remember the whole story though, so I have to plead the fifth on this one.
yeah, no, but apparently he flew over the south. I believe it was the South Pole, and claims that it opened up into basically he said a landmass the size of several U.S. states that it cleared, and there was animals down there that he thought had been long extinct, and then he said he saw basically a description of basically what Commander Fravor saw, without the video, of course. So things like that are super interesting. I mean, without it's super nice now having video to see these things, but when you take all these stories into account, even Bob Lazar's stories before, which had come out, um, I mean, in the '80s, and then with Element 115, and then
Yeah, I remember all of that.
right,
I was there,
yeah,
but I I would say take it all with a grain of salt, but it's okay to talk about it, you know. But I do not, I can't speak on the bird thing. I'd have to revisit that whole thing
right,
and see, make some conclusions. But Bob Lazar, uh, I got nothing to say.
right, right. I mean, the Bob Lazar stuff is kind of, because I've been fascinated with it forever, and just um, what I've taken from it, I mean, I take it always with a little grain of salt, and it's kind of like, well, it's just more fun just to listen to and ponder on than actual really evidence and stuff. But if you take into account his story, which I learned a lot about, and did two appearances on Joe Rogan's Experience, and
Yeah, I
basically,
saw those.
yeah, basically his story's been kind of the same for a few decades, and then you pair that with the way he describes these things, and then you pair it with what Commander Fravor saw years later, and then stories like Admiral Byrd from 100 years ago, and then even more ancient sort of biblical age quote unquote sightings of these things. It's kind of, whether it's some atmospheric thing, whether it's some inner earth civilization
Or
that's
something or something we've never thought of.
yeah,
I always leave that option open because we don't know everything, and I'm always a skeptic, of course, and I'm like, well, show me the goods, and I haven't ever seen anything that persuaded me that this stuff exists, but with the exception, I can't ignore the UAP anymore. I can't just say, because we have a federal government report with the United States Navy saying that, yeah, we see things we can't explain, and that's a security problem. That's We need to know if we've been leapfrogged by another country. We need to know if we're being threatened by an alien civilization, or there's nothing to it. Um, it's gotten to that point
right,
that you can't you can't you can't keep the taboo going when there's a security issue, especially
definitely.
one that if the wrong things happen with a tic tac in the South China Sea with tensions between the U.S. and China and Taiwan and all that, that could
Mhm.
spark a war. So we need to know what the nature of that is. Um,
100%. And there's so much more on that topic. I mean, uh, even Bob Lazar talked about, whether you believe him or not, but his story of working at S4 in Los Alamos. He said that he overheard, or his friend that also worked there talked about how they found one of these, I think, 9 craft that were in that immediate area. That one of them was found in an archaeological dig. I don't know how old, but that's kind of interesting and fun to think about too. But the UAP thing, that's becoming more and more prevalent. It used to be, especially when I was a kid, like I'm still young, but like a little kid first getting into these ideas, like it was kind of just super far out there. This is just fun to talk about. It's nothing to it. It's like Santa Claus basically. But
yeah.
now it's kind of, like we said earlier, like science fiction is turning into
Yeah,
reality every day.
the ante got upped. Look, we have been fighting about the subject of UFOs since the end of World War II with the Foo Fighters and all that. And there was the stigma where you weren't allowed to really talk about it or you sounded like crazy. Enough. Enough of that. Let's actually just openly talk about it because either there's something there or there isn't. So let's find out, you know? And that's what I'm hoping we can do. But for a long time there, you were just a crazy if you even talked about it. Well, I don't want to label people as crazy.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. We got to have these open dialogue discussions. You got to be willing to, and if you're wrong, like, I mean, that's one of the points with sort of these ancient civilization ideas. There's a lot of people that have their entire careers wrapped up into the ideas that they've either been teaching or talking about. So it's kind of hard for them when they hear these new ideas, for a lot of fields, but for someone to come in and say, basically, Zahi Hawass, you're wrong, and you might be wrong, and they might have been more to this, or whatever. So that's kind of another aspect. What do you think about that? Like academia, people's careers wrapped into the ideas that they're basically preaching.
Oh, there are things such as ego and pet
Hmm.
theories and things like that that certainly exists and exists in every area of academia. But I've also found that sometimes something that seems crazy actually is. And a good example is the Big Bang. George Lemaitre and all of that, that was originally, he was uncomfortable with it. He was a Catholic priest, and it was too close to creationism for his taste. He's like, let there be light. What? All of a sudden, this big singularity erupts and creates the universe. but I don't know anybody that really, you know, the consensus is that Big Bang cosmology is real. Same with
Mhm.
another example would be Albert Einstein. Einstein released general relativity, and I think a paper signed by 30 prominent scientists at the time said you're wrong, and he wasn't. That's how the universe appears to work.
Mhm.
So you don't want to get too caught up in consensus, but you also don't want to get too crazy, with claims. Um, but it wouldn't surprise me that some things that we currently think we know are errors. I don't know.
Right. Right. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. I got a few more questions here. And we can wrap our super fun conversation up. This was awesome. I love it. Um,
I hope I'm the JMG you thought I was.
oh, you are and more. Definitely. I'm loving it. This is great. This is super, super cool. I got some sort of more fun, quick questions. Well, this one's kind of big, but do you have some advice you would give to the younger upcoming generations?
Well, number one, be curious, don't lose interest, and don't think all is lost about the future. It's not. We can fix, uh, we can create a new future, even better than what we have right now. We can go and be very creative. We can go into space. We can do all kinds of things. So don't give in to people saying, "Well, your generation is terrible." No, my generation was terrible because we're leaving you a planet that's damaged, right? So you're the best to come yet. Um, and you know, do everything you can while you're here. You know, I mean, make it the best damn planet you can. And sorry for leaving you with such a crappy position as
No,
my
no.
generation did.
I love this. I mean, whether it's a little bit crappy or not, you still got us here. I mean, and
You'll
right
fix it.
now, yeah,
You'll fix it.
yep, yep. Now
But
we're
like I
gonna
was telling you, man, it has never been this exciting, with the stuff that's going on. And I I hope I live another 40 years, see how it turns out.
exactly you and me both. Favorite show that you're currently watching, if you're watching any TV shows right now?
The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett.
Okay,
And those are the two that I'm most interested in right now as a lifelong Star Wars fan.
awesome.
And let's see what else. Well, The Expanse.
That's one my brother's been trying to get me to watch.
It's really good. Haven't really been very impressed with Star Trek lately. But Star Wars, I mean, have you watched The Mandalorian? I mean, that's pretty solid stuff.
I've watched season one. I mean, I like I said earlier, I have an ADHD mind, so I kind of flip flop between like probably six different shows. But it was super good, super well done. And one of my favorite comedians, I think, was in there, Bill Burr, in one of the episodes. So
Yeah,
I got to
Bill
go
Burr
back.
was he was a blue alien in the first episode, I think.
Okay, yeah,
And then what's weird is one of my guests from Event Horizon, Werner Herzog, was the client that wanted to, he was from the Empire and wanted to get a hold of Baby Yoda.
yeah,
And right about that time when that was all airing, I interviewed him because of a Meteorite documentary that he did.
that's super cool. I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to go back and watch that one. I love it.
very cool dude. Very cool dude.
Yeah,
Made some amazing movies back in the 1970s, especially
yeah,
where he actually, I didn't get to ask him about this, but he actually hoisted an entire steamship over a mountain rather than doing it with models, just to make sure that he had the experience of doing that and how he understood it. And it was called Fitzcarraldo is the name of the movie.
Fitzcarraldo.
Fitzcarraldo.
I love diving. I love diving, especially like Star Wars and stuff like that, or Lord of the Rings. I mean, me and my siblings have had Lord of the Rings marathons. Start with the Hobbits, do it chronologically, go through Lord of the Rings, all extended editions. So it's like 4 hour plus movies, and just diving, or whether it's Star Wars, just completely diving in and just like immersing yourself into the universe. Basically, I completely love it. It's so fun. I love it.
It's that's the fun stuff.
Right.
I've been doing it my entire life. It never gets old.
Good. I'm glad to
In
hear that.
fact, I think I may actually reread the Lord of the Rings trilogy again soon because it's been about 20 years
Hmm.
and sort of revisit it. But I really loved that stuff. But you know, fan
Yeah,
fanboy.
definitely. No, I know it. Kind of, we're nerding out here, but I love it.
We're nerding
Um,
out. We're nerding out.
yeah, nothing wrong with that though. What's a book you're currently reading that you enjoy? Just one example.
You know, see, this gets this gets into my YouTube channel. So the current one I'm revisiting and rereading is Stephen Webb's book on Fermi paradox solutions. And at the time, he knew of 75, but I now know of about 127. So I'm revisiting that book. I'm also reading or getting ready to read a historical book. Um, Actually, I'm in the middle of a really historical book that I didn't know existed. I'm reading about the history of the German Navy in World War One, written by the Grand Admiral himself, Reinhard Scheer.
Really,
Yeah, and I had no idea this guy wrote a book about Battle of Jutland and all that. But I found it on Amazon. And I'm like, oh, I got to do that. Um, but yeah, those are things that have been occupying me lately.
I love it. Another recommendation. Even Joe Rogan's talked about this. But if you're into Native American history and stuff like that in the United States, Empire of the Summer Moon. It's about the Comanches. I'm pretty sure
Summer Moon, huh? All right.
that's a super good one. And I think he had the author or just a historian, Joe Rogan did, about the Comanche, and they are a it's just incredible. It's insane. You learn so much about it. It's a lot more than just what you see in the movies, obviously, but I love it.
Oh, you got to dig deeper than the movies.
Yep.
But I love every human civilization that's ever existed.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the whole of our species, and I love reading books like that because it gives you insights that you know you wouldn't have never come across otherwise.
Exactly. No, I love it too. I just watched. It's more of a well-known movie. It's fun, but 300 with Gerard Butler. It's about the
Spartans, I think.
Spartans, yeah, Spartans versus the Persians and stuff like that. They paint the Persians in sort of a barbaric light, but it'd be nice to see like a movie about the Persians back then too, specifically. But super good. I mean, I love movies like that. Especially I'm like one of my favorite directors is Quentin Tarantino. He didn't direct that, but I like the gory. I like the. I mean, I was like probably 5 years old watching Saving Private Ryan and stuff like that. So,
That was Steven Spielberg.
yep,
Yeah,
great movie,
great movie, very very great movie. But
insane.
it's hard to find a Steven Spielberg movie that isn't on some level of great. You know, um, and if you want to go back to the UFOs, one of my favorite movies is Close Encounters of the Third Kind that he did back in the 70s.
I have heard a lot about that and have never seen it. I'm writing it down right now.
You'll enjoy that one.
Awesome. Yeah,
Let's see what else is there. There's Jaws. If you like the idea of getting eaten by a shark.
I like that one. I was at Universal Studios probably like 10 years ago or something with my little sister and brother, and we were on the. It was the last year for the Jaws ride there, and they had a big animatronic Jaws thing that came out of the water, and then a dude at the bow with the China Lake grenade launcher. It was
Yeah,
super cool. It was freaked us out anyways. It was pretty good, but they just shut it down. I don't know. I don't know why.
the
Um,
shark got too old, probably wore out.
Probably, yeah. I mean, legit, yeah. Um, okay. Quick question. Another quick question. Boom. Favorite breakfast food?
uh, favorite breakfast. I need to make sure I want to say this, and I do. The breakfast burrito from McDonald's.
Ooh, the one where you can get two of them for like $1.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Uh-huh.
What kind of sauce you putting on that?
I like their in-house salsa packet,
Yeah,
and the other
same.
thing too is you can buy them ahead of time and like eat them for 2 days because they microwave really well.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I'm with you. You and my dad are gonna be best friends because
Yeah.
he'll come home with like 12 of them, and we'll just eat them. So I love that. If,
Yeah.
if we're talking McDonald's or breakfast food, um, overall breakfast food, I mean, I'm pretty simple American farm boy, basically bacon. I grew up raising hogs and lambs, so that was kind of we always had chest freezers full of that. But if we're talking McDonald's, yeah, my heart belongs to. I like the burritos a lot, but the bacon, egg, bacon and egg biscuit, bacon, egg and cheese biscuit. That's I'll devour like 5 of those and then ruin my entire day.
Well, you have to talk too about the egg McMuffin,
Okay,
which is it deserves its place.
it does.
But the best thing about McDonald's is the hash browns.
Oh, I forgot about the hash browns. Oh my gosh, you're 100%. They're always perfectly cooked, always extremely hot. This is the most important part of the
Perfectly,
stuff.
perfectly crispy
Yeah,
with good decent ketchup and yeah, yeah, that's heaven.
yeah. So if you're eating the burrito and you have the perfect contrast of the sort of not mushiness, I guess, for lack of better terms right now, but and then you pair it with the nice crunch of the hash brown and the saltiness of it. Oh, some ketchup.
Yeah,
Yeah, now we're talking. Now I'm getting hungry.
yeah. That now I want breakfast food
Yeah, me too. Favorite actor or actress?
or actress, actor or actress. I can give you two.
Okay.
Favorite actress, Jodie Foster. Always liked everything she did. Silence of the Lambs, Contact, and such. Favorite actor is Orson Welles.
Okay. Yeah, that's an important man for sure, especially in today's sort of climate. Definitely. Mine would probably be favorite actor. Um, probably probably Jim Carrey, and not for what most people like him for. I really liked his performance, and probably my favorite movie is The Truman Show. That's
Very, 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 very underrated
very
movie, and he did a fantastic job.
extremely cool. Yeah. So that'd be my number one favorite actress. Um, Probably gonna have to go. Oh, that's a hard one. Uh, she was more on TV shows, but I love the
So I just almost busted my ass on the ice.
Oh, you went outside. You're not supposed to venture out.
Yes. I'm not supposed to, but it did.
I love it. My coworker he literally did that yesterday, right when the ice started. He apparently almost like broke his arm, but he was able to make it to work. But I had to kind of pull his weight, but it's
Yeah,
all
my
right.
older brother busted his ass in the snowstorm from 3 weeks ago and
Did he?
got a concussion. And it's like, damn. So I'm like walking around with this bag of salt,
Yeah.
throwing it in front of me to, not bust my old ass.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I mean, and concussions for your brother. I mean, that stuff's scary. I mean, I used to
Yeah.
race motocross and
Ooh.
for a few years, and uh, had some gnarly crashes. I raced motocross, so on the tracks, and then I had some trail bikes, and I lived right next to state land, so I would just go out for hours and hours and hours until basically sundown. But then one day at the track practicing, cross-rutted on a triple, and basically landed on my head and was completely knocked out, and don't know how I got back about half a mile back to my truck, back by the sign-in area and where you bring your truck to unload your bike and stuff like that. And I remember calling my dad, mom and dad. I'm like, I call him up because I get back there, the owner of the track. I helped work. I worked there for multiple summers and stuff, getting the track set up for races. He's there with me, and he's like, "Do you know what day it is?" And no idea. "Do you know what year it is?" No idea. What does that even mean? Call my mom and dad, speed dial or whatever. Boom. Hey, I crashed. Can you come get me? And then hang up. And they're like, "Yeah, we'll come get you. Blah blah blah. You all right? Yeah, we'll come get you." Hang up the phone. Call them about 2 minutes later, thinking it was hours later, and call, "Hey, where are you guys at? You coming to get me? I crashed." Blah blah blah. They're like, "Yeah, you just called." Hang up the phone
Oh, there you
again.
are.
Oh, you got me?
Yeah, no, we froze for just a moment,
Okay,
but we're back.
good, good. But yeah, just multiple times calling them and just thinking that hours had passed when only minutes, which is kind of a weird. That's kind of just consciousness in general is weird.
Perception of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perception of time is just so weird. And so went to the hospital, whatever. Yeah, you got a pretty bad concussion. You can't drive for basically half a month. You gotta do this and that, and don't overstimulate your brain. But so I kind of quit motocross then. But yeah, concussions are no joke. They're not something to play with. So hopefully your brother's good.
He seems to be getting better.
Good.
Um, but the thing is that I mean, you know, there's sort of something going on right now with Bob Saget. You remember the actor?
Yeah.
And he hit his head on a headboard and died. Went to
Yeah.
sleep after hitting his head. So it's really scary. If you think you have a brain injury, go to the hospital. You know, don't chance it or risk it.
Right.
And that's sort of the takeaway. Um, Now, how old were you when you had that accident?
I would have been 15 years old. It was, yeah, the year before we moved from the UP to where we are now, downstate Michigan, probably like 45 minutes outside of Detroit. We're in Howell. Little town. From a little town to a sort of a, I mean, I'd never driven on an interstate even before in my old town. They didn't even teach us about interstates or heavy traffic lights because we didn't have them at all. They would talk more about watching out for hitting deer and stuff like that. But yeah,
Oh,
so would have been 15 at that point. And yeah, that was kind of a scary event. But and I don't know, long lasting effects. I mean, some days I like to pretend that maybe that's why whatever, foggy thinking or something like that. But I don't know. I've also, like I mentioned, I mean, I've got one of those fast brains. It's kind of all over the place, ADHD brain. But I mean, it helps to your advantage sometimes. But
in my case, OCD is one of them.
okay,
I have just enough OCD that it makes me apparently good at what I do.
right,
Uh, but it's I understand what you're saying, where sometimes these things can be helpful as opposed to disorders.
right. And you can look at them. You can look at them as disorders or whatever you want to, sort of a superpower or something, whatever you want to call it. But it's better to look at it in a positive light than a negative one for sure.
But you can't ignore that some people grapple with this stuff,
Right,
and can't quite, turn it around into an advantage.
right.
So it's a very serious problem for a lot of people.
Definitely. I
Um,
mean, on that, I mean, that leads into, I mean, my whole family struggles with some mental health stuff, as a lot of families do, more than what's talked about and more than people even know, in general and in all over the world. But ADHD, for anyone that has that, it kind of goes hand in hand with anxiety and depression too, because you're
they're all related.
it's
I have
yeah,
anxiety and depression too,
yeah,
and they're two sides of the coin.
100%.
Um, so what was it like growing up on the Upper Peninsula?
Upper Peninsula. Pick up any book about a pioneer kid on a farm, basically. Old Yeller is probably most related to what literally my life was. I even had a yellow lab golden retriever growing up named Sonny, who passed just 2 years ago. Um, but I mean, I grew when I was 9, probably 8 years old when we moved to the farm. Well, we moved to the farm when I was 7, but from the time I was like 8 years old, it was all right, you're helping with the remodel, you're stacking firewood, you're cutting firewood, you're helping I'm helping my old man do every little thing. You're going down to the neighbors to help Jim, the farmer, work the fields down there, and you're gonna be picking rocks for he's gonna pay you, but he'll pay you $10 an hour, but you're out there all day picking rocks so that you can
Okay,
plant.
field stones, I
Yeah,
guess is what you're looking at. Now, how do you know they aren't meteorites?
that's a good question. I don't, I guess. Do you, is I mean, that's a good question. You picked so many, and there was so many different there were so many weird ones too that you pick up and look at for half a second, go, oh, that was weird or whatever. You throw it in the bucket, tractors behind you. And I've even seen some really weird ones that I thought were coal or something like that. Some really weird look like deposity looking weird stones working in the pool business that I did last summer. And so yeah, I'd have to read up on that and sort of look at what features you have to look at to identify those, but that's a good question.
Always throw field stones into a pile where you know where
Mhm.
they're at and learn to identify meteorites because think about it. People have been farming that land, or at least down here, this would be the case where they've been farming it for centuries, right?
Right,
So, how many field stones are going to be left? Um, but if a meteorite falls, you might have something weird, especially if it
right.
looks like it's made of iron, you know.
Mhm. And
Um,
and the on that, the field stones, we uh, both of we had 40 acres, our biggest main fields, we had 2 massive rock piles, and from what I understand, it's from millions of years ago, the ice sheets putting or pushing up all the stones
Dumping it,
from
yeah.
the plains up there, so you put a shovel in the ground, you're hitting rocks, and so we literally had massive piles. I wish we had this conversation when I was about 10 years old because I would have been looking in those piles. We used to paintball in them, use them as forts. We used to do all sorts of stuff, look for snakes that were burrowing down in them and stuff like that, but
You could have been paintballing a meteorite worth thousands and thousands of dollars and not
oh
know
my god. Some Martian meteorite. That'd be
it.
insane.
It makes it even better if it's from Mars or the moon. That ups the price significantly.
Yeah, I'm using it as cover while it's getting smacked by paintballs. Yeah. There was and it's I mean down by where you're at, it's probably more so, but we would I always was sad that I never found arrowheads and stuff like that, but it just
Oh, you can't.
the the tribes up there weren't, I guess, as prevalent or whatever.
Down here, you have to be careful, because you
Yeah.
have to be sensitive and careful because there are burial mounds and all kinds of
Hmm.
things you don't want to disturb and you want,
Right.
to preserve. And then unfortunately, they would bury grave goods with them. So
Hmm.
pots and things like that are worth money. So of course you go up and you see them and people dug into them and
Definitely.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
But as far as arrowheads and just not even that, just as it just even just chips
Yeah.
while they were making them, we see that stuff all over here. It's ubiquitous.
Yeah. I've got a aunt and uncle that live in Iowa, and they have a whole like coffee table with the glass see-through glass, and just underneath a whole collection of arrowheads that they found and different stones that were chipped from their however they make them. It's fascinating how they made them too. It's like, are you kidding me?
And
That's how
how
you made these?
and the art form that they took that to
Yeah.
thousands of years ago, you find these just exquisite arrowheads that they made, and
Yeah.
it just someone was very very good at what they were doing.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's life and death. You have to be able to hunt. You have to be able to clean deer and do all these
Yeah.
things. And they were well equipped. Those
Very, very. Like
those
some of them were sharper than steel knives that you would
yeah.
you would professionally sharpened. So
Absolutely.
saying,
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's still that way after thousands of years. You
yeah,
know,
that's the thing
imagine
too.
imagine a kitchen knife sitting out for 5 years out in the rain. It's not going to be there. It's going to be mostly gone. Yet these stone points are still there after 5,000, 10,000 years. I mean,
Yeah.
even something like a Clovis point, which is among the earliest points found in North America,
Hmm.
and they can be, I mean, as far as 12,000 years, the end of the last ice age. They can look like they were made yesterday still.
It's crazy. I don't even. Yeah, it's hard to comprehend. It's hard to wrap your mind around that someone worked a human worked this stone into this shape to
And
use
how
it
good they
to.
were.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen the movie? It's kind of off topic, but Apocalypto. It's a Mel Gibson directed movie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it did. Uh-huh.
it's a good one.
Um, my favorite part of that movie was the very end when the Spanish ships show up and the whole paradigm changes,
Hmm.
just on a dime. And that world was about to come to an end that we had just been living in across the course of the movie.
Right.
Um, but I found that to be a masterpiece um, by a very troubled soul. Mel Gibson
Mhm.
was a troubled soul, but
Definitely, definitely. A lot of good movies from him. Like, I mean, most of them are good. Like, I mean, the Patriot. What's the other one? What's the one where he's a Scottish guy?
oh, that's Braveheart.
Braveheart. I like that one too. Um, he did the Passion of the Christ, right? If you're
Yes.
religious or and there's some backlash for that or whatever, but I don't know. I haven't read into that. I don't think I watched it all, but yeah,
Not my cup of tea. I did watch it, and
yeah,
I found it gratuitously violent, actually.
yeah, yeah. They wouldn't let us watch that at church school. I mean, we were watching the animated ones, so
Yeah, I can't imagine young me in Catholic school would have been allowed to watch that.
exactly. Yeah,
Right. But
blasphemy.
well, just violence. I mean, it was
Right.
gratuitously violent.
Exactly. Blood every scene. People are just, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But, movies,
Movies.
movies. Now, what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie. Um, well, if it's not, if it's either The Truman Show or, like I said earlier, or that we talked about, Interstellar. I thought Interstellar, when I first saw it, and even watching it now, is absolutely. I just love that movie. Absolutely love that movie. The scoring in it too, the music, um, fits it so well. I love all the actors. I love Matthew McConaughey in it. I like Michael Caine as
Yeah, Matthew
basically
McConaughey.
NASA director.
Yeah.
There's a one girl I can't remember her name, but she's his daughter when she grows up and she figures out that it's he's using basically I think Morse code or whatever with. There's just so many cool ideas. I mean, he goes into the black hole and all sorts of things. I mean, that was kind of unrealistic because you'd probably get stretched like a piece of spaghetti. I think it's spaghettification.
Spaghettification,
Yeah,
sir.
spaghettification. Yeah,
But I think that's what I was saying earlier is that they sort of took some liberties. But the
yeah,
reality is that, you know, the reality is that they could have rethought that, you know,
yeah,
um, and made probably the best science fiction movie of all time if they would have followed the actual hard science as it was laid out originally when they were working with Kip Thorne. But at the same time, I love it.
yeah,
But the thing is I don't know. I don't know that the common denominator of the universe comes back to us in the far future manipulating our past, which
right.
seemed to be what they were trying to advance. That seems dangerous to me. I
Yeah. And was it a I don't it's not a Dyson sphere. I think I'm confusing that with
O'Neill cylinder.
O'Neill cylinder. Yeah, they was that at the end of the movie when they were living on that, I believe.
Yeah, and that I think was relatively within reason,
Yeah.
realistic.
Would
Um,
it look like that too? Because it was you're like on what seems like flat ground, and then off in the distance it kind of rises up, and there's like
more
houses.
more or less, yeah, that's what it would
Okay.
look like. It might actually. My thought was it might actually have been quite a bit bigger
Okay.
than it was, but at the same time, that's about what it would look like,
Okay.
and you would feel artificial gravity through centrifugal force. So you could create that artificial gravity, but it would be different feeling than gravity here on Earth. So in other words, if you were in that centrifuge, which it essentially is, if
Yeah.
you turned your head, it would feel differently than it would here on the planet. So, but it's not something you couldn't get used to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But that was realistic. But the planets were the problem because I mean, for a time to dilate on level with that ocean planet,
Yeah.
with the tidal force and all that,
Yep.
you would need to be hovering just above the event horizon of that black hole, just above it, for that effect to be that marked.
Yeah.
Um, so
On that planet it was like every 7 seconds is
yeah,
or something, whatever, however many years or something.
for that kind of dilation, you're going to have to be very, very close to that black hole.
Yeah.
Not impossible, but very close. And the
Okay.
other thing too is that it wouldn't cause those tidal effects. It would actually cause a sort of oblong, you know, the water would get pulled,
Okay.
and it wouldn't necessarily create gigantic tides like that. So
Yeah.
they took a lot of artistic license on that front. And then the other one, with the frozen cloud planet,
Oh yeah.
that's not going to happen.
That's the one
Uh,
Matt Damon's planet, I believe.
yeah. Um, so that's where they messed up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're not going to find a better black hole in a movie. I mean, that's what those things generally look like, or as
Right.
close as we know or knew at the time to what that's actually like. And it really brought to life the awesome power of a black hole and its accretion disk, for the first time. So I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because that movie was fantastic on that front.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. That's making me want to watch it tonight. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna watch tonight. I'm watching something science fictiony for sure. Definitely after this.
Yeah, I am probably going to watch. I need to revisit Star Wars to sort of get back up to speed watching Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So I need to rewatch the original trilogy. So I might do that.
What's the one that gets a lot of heat? What's the one that a lot of people don't like? It's like number two or something like that.
The Empire Strikes Back was good, but the third one of the original trilogy, the Return of the Jedi, does get some heat. The thing
Mhm.
is, see, here's how this works. Everybody complained about the Return of the Jedi back in the 80s,
Yeah.
and they were like, well, that's terrible. But it's still one of the best Star Wars movies ever made, given the content beyond that.
Mhm.
The other thing, too, is that for years and years, everybody said, well, the prequels were terrible, that were done in the 90s by George Lucas.
Mhm.
Uh, no, now we see people that are growing up and saying, that was my Star Wars, when I grew up.
Right. Yeah, that was
And
100%. Those were mine.
uh, and they're fantastic. Honestly, they were very harshly judged when they shouldn't have been, and the cycle continues. You know, but when I look at what Disney's doing now with Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, I'm like, that's Star Wars on level
Hmm.
with any Star Wars.
Hmm.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah. I need to get
So
back to the Mandalorian. I need to continue watching that because I know my dad watched all of it and he loved it, and he's usually more of just a documentary type guy, history stuff, but he really liked this, so that's when you know it's good. I love it.
he's probably my age and remembering
Yep.
back.
Yep.
It's saying, well, this is Star Wars is back. Uh,
100%. Yeah.
Now, what is your aim with your YouTube channel and podcast? What's the end game?
The end game. That's a very good question. A question that I've asked myself as well.
That's why they pay me the little bucks.
Yeah, yeah.
Think of those
It
kinds of questions.
basically this is week 3 of basically my YouTube channel. My brother, he's got a podcast called Mitch is a Bad Man, where he does a lot of political commentary and sort of just fun stuff. We did it before he moved down and I moved down. We did it with our friends and stuff. A lot of hanging out, a lot of talking sports, stuff like this. But this stuff is that's why I talked to Brian Forrester last week, and I reached out to you because basically, whether I get views or not, this is a conversation that um, basically with my heroes, with people that I really look up to, and get a lot of information and pass a lot of time ingesting and viewing and stuff like that. So currently, I'm doing it for the love of this, for the conversation, and I'll share it out to as many people as I can. I know my brother; he's gonna help me with some stuff, and we're gonna post it to his channels too. But currently, that's a great question. Currently, it's just for the love of the conversation and learning. I mean, just this conversation, I learned a ton because there's always whenever I listen to whether it's a podcast um or one of your produced videos with just you, there's always questions where it's like, okay, I heard that, but I wish I could ask him one more little bit, one little detail about that of what he just said. So last week with Brian and this week with you, it's super cool. And just being able to, I was completely surprised just getting a garnering a response from you, especially from Brian. Ben from Uncharted X is a YouTube channel that does travels just like Brian Forrester did, exploring these ancient sites. I'm gonna do one with him probably next week. And then I don't know if you've ever seen Kurt Jaimungo with Theories of Everything podcast.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah,
So
I know him.
I'm in contact with him, and we're probably going to set something up soon as well. He's really busy right now, and I've even got the chance to message on Twitter with Brian Keating, and right now he's a bit busy right now too. So he said in the future, hopefully we can have a little conversation. And I always say, just if you're busy or whatever, just 5 to 10 minutes, and I'd be glad to have even five minutes of your time. And usually, I mean, so far it's been
Dr. Keating is Dr. Keating is a very good dude. I'm sure you'll get along great with him.
awesome.
He's the real deal.
Yeah. So as far as a channel, I'm just gonna keep doing this, and if it's something that I love doing, I mean, wherever there's something that you love doing or listening to, there's gonna be an audience. There's gonna be other people out there that love it as
Oh yeah.
well. So it's kind of just we'll see where it goes and do what I can to promote it, I guess. And right now, I mean, I'm sure channels change their names and stuff right now, but it's just, I mean, my name's Carson John Ness, so and I grew up a big comedy fan and parents and stuff like that, and they were kind of influenced in naming me Carson, so Carson Johnny Show for now, I guess, but kind of a play on the Johnny Carson show.
I noticed, and
Yeah,
I almost changed my Zoom name to Winfrey Oprah in
that would have
order
been
to.
that would have been hilarious.
Johnny Carson was an amazing host. When
Percent.
I and you're going to do this because this is how it works. When you learn to conduct interviews on higher and higher levels, you have to study all of these past interviewers, and Johnny Carson is a good example, but also Dick Cavett and things like that to learn how to toss a relevant question in that your audience wants to hear the answer for.
Hmm.
And trust me, dude, as you do this, you will do that. You'll be like, what did they do back in the day?
Yeah,
And you really gain a real appreciation. But the fact is that you even know who Johnny Carson is pretty amazing.
Dick Cavett too, Cavett, whatever it is. I've watched a ton of his stuff. Just that's another thing. Like with YouTube, you get to see
Mm.
so much content of the past that I would have never seen. And so like interviews with just the way he did it, he was just friends and like a regular guy with everyone. I've watched a lot of the Louis
You know,
Armstrong.
he's still around. Dick
Is
Cavett
he?
is still with us. Yes.
No,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Oh my gosh, for real.
Watch,
Whoa.
look at the Dick Cavett Show website or YouTube channel, and
Okay.
you'll see that he's releasing all of his old content. And yeah,
Yeah.
he's still kicking.
That's why I found it for sure. That's incredible. That's great to hear. I love it. That's super cool.
Yep. And I will never be as good as that guy was. You know.
He's a legend. Johnny Carson. I mean, these guys are pinnacles, and just the stories of. I mean, it would have been a fun time back then to be alive too, because there was a lot of. I know Johnny Carson and stuff. He was a fun. He had a nightlife side to him too. He was a fun dude too. So I mean, yeah. As
Yeah,
far as
but
so
something you might not know is that Johnny Carson was an amateur astronomer.
really,
Love telescopes. Yep.
that's incredible. Did not know that. Wow.
He was that's why he had Carl Sagan on so much was he was an astronomy enthusiast,
Hmm.
and he was probably the most prominent one back in those days
Okay.
in the 80s and 90s as far as amateur astronomers go. But yeah, he loved that stuff, and he was able to mix really comedy and interview skills in a way that I don't think anybody ever had before. Now they
Yeah.
have since. I mean, we got Jimmy Kimmel and all these guys, but before Carson, there wasn't much as far as being able to do the personable interview style and comedy and
Right.
monologues that he did. And
Hmm.
yeah, I stand in awe of Johnny Carson.
Definitely a hero. I wish he was around still. But yeah, I appreciate the words too. That's really good advice. Yeah, it's really fun for me right now. I mean, it's literally it's in its infancy. Doing this is basically brand new. I mean, I started a new job, and I mean, just threw out some messages to some people that I'd really love to talk to, and it's worked out so far. So, I mean, your time especially, it's super appreciated. I appreciate it so much. So, I,
It's the old YouTube ethic of pay it forward. You
mhm,
know, when you get when life throws you an acorn on YouTube, you pass it forward to smaller channels,
right.
and I very much believe in that. And a lot of people helped me when I was building building my original channel. I had Fraser Kane, Isaac Arthur, everybody that were collaborating with me. And what you do is when you get lucky, you point that attention towards smaller YouTubers,
Yeah.
and that's just how it has to work, you know.
Hmm.
Um, or else you're at the mercy of YouTube.
You're at the mercy of the AI algorithms and stuff.
The
So,
AI algorithm, yes.
oh,
Which for some reason liked me early on. I don't know why.
that's good though. That's good. The AI liked you. Maybe it is self-aware and it enjoys your content.
That would be the most terrifying thing ever uttered by a human being is that the AI algorithm of YouTube is in control of everything, all of our lives.
That would
You
be
know, that would
scary.
be it doesn't get worse. That's I would give me the zombie apocalypse in
Yeah,
that case, you know. Or
100%.
the or what's the really bad one? The Roko's basilisk.
Okay, what's that?
Roko's basilisk is the idea that a AI in the far future decides to recreate humans, and this is just one variation of it, in order to torture them
Okay,
for holding it back and creating it or whatever it wants to torture humans for. And therefore, it becomes a sort of self contained artificial intelligent hell that is out simply to torture humans to get back at us.
that's
And
horrible. Do they use them for fuel or anything? Sort of like the Matrix idea?
it doesn't have to do that. All it has to do is create other artificial intelligences that think they're humans
Okay.
and then torture them.
Ugh.
And that this is the life we live, and that we are actually in a kind of artificially intelligent hell.
Ugh. That's creepy. I don't even want to think of that. Ew.
No, I got much worse.
Yeah, no, thank you. I like my AI to be nice and make me McDonald's burritos. That's what I want.
Well, it did do that though, so it can't be all bad.
Okay.
I
So it
mean that
kind of
that it
toys
allows
with
that it
you.
allows that it allows for the existence of the McDonald's breakfast burrito means that it must be sympathetic to some extent.
Hmm.
Um, but that also assumes that it's sane, and that's where we get into Boltzmann's brains. Ludwig Boltzmann came up with the idea that if you have an infinite universe that's completely dead, past stars, galaxies, everything, and it's just this infinitely existing state of affairs, then out of the random chance of this universe comes an intelligence that finds itself existing, at least briefly.
Hmm.
And it's called a Boltzmann brain. And because of infinity, this must happen at some point, right? Because of just the statistics of it, it has
Hmm.
to happen. Whatever is possible within infinity must eventually happen as long as
Yeah,
it's possible. And the random emergence of a consciousness in a dead universe must happen, right? So what's it do? Looks around, sees nothing but black, realizes its universe is dead, and says, I'm going to simulate as best I can what once was. And it creates a simulation. And there we get into simulation theory. So you have to ask the question is number one, is it sane? And number two, is this a simulation being created by something like that? And number three, is it God?
that's these are crazy ideas. I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, at that point, wouldn't it? Yeah, you could call it God, couldn't you? Because
Yeah. We are the dreams of, in this case,
yeah,
we
in
are,
that case, yeah,
in this case, and I don't want to attack anybody's preconceptions of what gods are or anything like that. It's not that. This is
yeah,
entirely a thought experiment.
yeah.
If we are in that situation, then we are the fever dreams of an insane god.
That is crazy to ponder. And I mean, The Matrix scares me enough. That movie. I mean, the idea along with the breakfast burrito thing, them sympathizing and allowing. I mean, like in that movie, they talk about. I mean, when he hands out the pill, the blue pill and the red pill, it's like, I mean, the steak in the simulation tastes real and juicy and delicious. It'll fill you up. You'll be satisfied or whatever. But is it really real, or
Well,
is there?
you got to ask the question about steak in general because it's just atoms, you know? What is taste, you know? And we were talking about time and the
Yeah,
perception of time. What exactly is the present? There is no physical concept within all of physics that is the present, right? There's only the future and the past. So, what is the present? And I did a video on this called There Is No Now because there isn't. It's all in our head.
yeah,
Our perception of reality and what we call now is entirely a construct of the brain. And the brain does all kinds of things like that. You don't really have all that many receptors in your eyes to see the colors that humans do. It's your brain painting it,
yeah.
and interpolating it.
Right.
Well, I mean, what's that mean? What is perception? So
Yeah.
those are fun questions, and not ones I get to talk about very often because I'm usually talking about exomoons or something
Yeah,
like that.
you're with a professor, you're with a
Yeah,
distinguished person you're talking about rigid topics. That's interesting. I mean,
and soon you will be
yeah,
because most
hopefully.
of them will talk to you just as much as they talk to me.
Appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. I mean, on the perception thing, just my brother, he has degenerative night blindness. I can't remember retinitis pigmentosa. He's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's one of the basically leading like subjects at Iowa State University, and which is one of the top places researching this stuff. So he goes every year and gets his pupils dilated and gets all checked out, whatever. But hopefully there's something they can do in the future for that. I
What's
mean,
his?
go ahead.
How old? How old is he?
He's 24.
Oof, that's early.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's had it. He's had it. It's not degenerating anymore right now. It's possible with that they could go that you can go blind. But he doesn't have those traits, or genes or whatever it would be. But I mean, as a
Well,
kid,
I wish him the best of luck. Send him my
of
you know,
course,
yeah,
of
dandy.
course, no, Mitch is gonna he's gonna be in awe that I was even able to do this with you. And we're actually building a studio at his house. He bought a new house, and we're building it out in the basement. So hopefully, if in the future, whatever, if we can have another little chat, he'll be there with us, and you can
No, sure.
ask him directly. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
as kids, my parents, they were like, why is when he could walk and stuff, why is he bumping into walls as an infant? Why is he doing this? And then they figured out what it was, and so as kids, he'd always have to have a flashlight and stuff. Kids asking him, why are you walking
Oh,
through the movie theater with a flashlight and stuff like that. But it kind of a boy named Sue effect where it's kind of he's like used to it now, and it's just like it's kind of cool almost right now that he's lived through it and all that shit like that. I mean, it's and that he's basically one of the lead cases at Iowa State University getting, I mean,
well,
I don't know.
hopefully by studying what's going on with him can help others at least.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, there's crazy talk from like Elon Musk, even with the Neuralink stuff. Um, we'll see it if that goes anywhere. I mean, that's
Hey,
kind of far
we'll
fetched, but
see. We'll see. All right, bathroom. I'll be right back.
no problem.
Off the record, if you want me to talk to anybody that's been on Event Horizon, Brian Keating or something like that, I can.
So we can keep going, but I mean, beat ups is they're open pretty late, and I like going there and watching some UFC stuff anyway. So, but I'm having a great time. This is awesome.
You know, funny enough, I live next to an up and coming UFC champion.
Really,
Yeah, I can't say anything more, but yeah, my neighbor is huge into
really.
UFC, and
Can
he
you
just mixed martial arts stuff, and he's got like a dojo up in the upper part of his house, right? And it's like a training facility up there. It's crazy,
yeah?
and he keeps coming back, and every time I see him, he's like holding a trophy up, you know.
Did you
Um,
do you know what weight class he's in?
uh, he's bigger than me. I
Okay,
don't know the weight class, but I'm 5'9" and I weigh 150 pounds.
okay.
So he's bigger than me. So he's probably in some sort of stocky 6 foot range, maybe.
That's exciting. I train. I haven't been doing it lately just because I can't afford it. But I'm getting back to being able to. I mean, the prices went up at the academy I used to go to, but um, shout out, I guess, Scorpion Fighting System in Brighton, Michigan. They have a lot of up and coming fighters, Josh Parisian and stuff, UFC. Great academy, probably one of the best in Michigan. But yeah, I trained jujitsu for 2 years about.
Oh,
Yeah, no gi, so you're just shorts and stuff. It's not the the full get up. It's called a gi, but um, yeah, it's super fun. It's super just the hand to hand stuff. It's you get so much out of it. It's one of the craziest workouts. Motocross is sometimes regarded as one of the most physically demanding sports, and this is right up there with it. I mean, you're 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 bringing each other to the brink of if this was a couple thousands of years ago and we were in a battle with both weapons got skidded across the ground too far out of our reach and whatever,
uh,
you're bringing each other to the point of either close to death or you know simulated death, right?
right.
You're choking someone out until they tap. You're putting them in an armbar or a triangle choke until they tap. So if it was thousands of years ago, it was you'd be snapping their arm or something like that. It's
Now,
pretty barbaric.
now, correct me if I'm wrong. That a lot of mixed martial arts stuff and that sort of genre all descend from early fighting techniques, like Tai Chi, for example. I think was from, actually defending yourself from someone on horseback, as I remember. Am I right?
Yeah, oh, you're 100% right, 100%. And jujitsu, that's the jujitsu we know today was basically crafted and created by the Gracie family
Ah,
in Brazil, and basically that got brought over to America, and now it's just one of the biggest components in all of fighting. I mean, wrestling, judo, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, those you gotta boxing, you gotta know all that if you're gonna be a professional, especially in the UFC, which is the biggest brand. There's other sub brands like Bellator or
mhm.
One FC. But yeah, it's all those forms, and they all came from thousands of years ago. Crazy,
That's
crazy art form.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing that techniques,
Hmm.
battle techniques
It's
from that long ago are still with us and
it's
still being.
it's crazy, and it's every age range. I mean, when I first went in there, my first class, I got my ass beat basically by this
Yeah.
probably 13-year-old girl because you don't know what to do. Like
Right.
literally, I'm in a chokehold and I'm just getting strangled. I'm like, how in the world is this happening right now? But it's like 80% of the people in the streets, like if you go down to the ground and you're wrestling, a lot of the times you're just holding on to each other or whatever. But if you know how to manipulate your body and the other person's body, it's just a world of difference. Even if you're just a white belt, you don't even have to be that experienced. Just knowing what to do if someone grabs you or you grab them, where to put your
But but isn't this just physics ultimately?
pretty much, yeah. It really is, yeah. I can't argue with that. I mean, that's
It's
basically all it is.
an inherent understanding of physics gives you an advantage to be able to take somebody down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean,
And knowing
definitely.
about distribution of weight and
Yeah.
intuitively being able to, go into that situation and know what to do to take somebody down.
y-
But I mean, this is something that's used to this day with police,
Yeah.
I mean, or police action, something like that, to know how to subdue someone through the most efficient means possible. But that's how physics works too. I mean,
Right. And I think and it's kind of becoming more prevalent, but I think there needs to be more because cops use these techniques too, but it's kind of a more watered down, almost westernized version of it, where it's just like, all right, basically put them in a Kimura, which is the most basic thing you see with a cop when they grab your arm, sort of twist it, and then it's behind your back, and you're kind of
yeah,
immobilized.
yep, yep,
Um, and but if they had more training, I mean, there's been a lot of instances that made a lot of the news, but if they had more training where you could subdue the person and do it correctly, I rolled with multiple people um, during class that were police officers, and they're just like, yeah, everyone should be doing this. It should be required because you can save lives, you can save your own
oh
life.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah. You can intervene, you
hmm
know,
100%,
something bad going on, you can intervene. And I've
exactly.
often thought about actually taking some classes just to learn some basics of it myself.
Oh, you could.
You know, but that it for somebody that's just looking at it superficially,
Hmm.
it seems like, oh, it's a sport, but no, it's much more than that.
Right.
So
Oh, 100%. And then you build
right.
a relationship with these people there too, because you're hand to hand combat. You're rolling with this person. You're testing each other's limits. You have to it's everything. You have to control breath. If you do yoga, it helps tremendously with obviously
Yeah,
flexibility and doing
yeah,
breath work. Um, that's one of the main things when you first start training. It's like your coach will come around and be like, breathe, 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 because you got someone on you that's trying to strangle you or grab an arm to
yeah.
to basically simulate breaking it. And you're freaking out if you don't know what to do, and so you're breathing fast, your heart rate's up, you don't know what's going on, but so you have to really calm down. So it's a ton of components, and like you said, for someone outside looking in, it's like if you watch the UFC and you see them on the ground and they're in the middle of a roll and doing jujitsu, to the normal fan, it's just like, get him up, punch him. What are you doing? What are you
Yeah, but
doing?
that's not
Roll over. And it's
the
like,
the reality is not the same as what the
exactly,
viewer sees. Yeah.
exactly. And then and some a lot of fight fans who don't know the art, they'll hate that when they go to the ground because they want to see someone get knocked out. But if some guy just gets choked, like anticlimactic. It's choked out, and then the fight's over, and no one's bleeding and stuff like that. They're like, oh, but it's super cool if you know even a little bit of it. Go to a couple classes, and you'll have a crazy appreciation for it.
I already do. I've it just amazes me that people, can actually control themselves to the point of using techniques to win a fight or
Yeah.
subdue a criminal or something like that.
Hmm.
Because I have no such, control.
Yeah.
But it's amazing.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I love it. I need to go back,
So
man. You're making me want to go back. So
see
yeah,
how this works. I have taken over your YouTube channel,
you
and I'm
have
interviewing you now about MMA. See
a
how this
hundred
works?
percent. I'm here for it. I love it. This is awesome.
Um, so ancient aliens. What other content do you watch like that?
Like Ancient Aliens, I don't. That was something that kind of that used to be on when I was younger,
Mhm.
and so I'd watch. I was always
Huge fan.
I was fascinated with Egyptian stuff. So as a kid, I'd be alone in the other part of the farmhouse watching these Egyptian documentaries and Zahi Hawass and all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to him, Zahi Hawass. I know that during the Egyptian Revolution, he got in some trouble,
Yeah,
but
he was Egyptian minister of antiquities,
mhm.
and apparently he got in trouble for I think something to do with stealing artifacts and covering up artifacts that were found and stuff like that. And kind of in the community of looking at this stuff in archaeology and all that stuff, he's kind of like a an outcast now. It's kind of like a forbidden topic. It's like, oh, Zahi Hawass, you whatever. But so yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but he's definitely out of the limelight, and there's a lot of controversy with him. A lot of these programs where they say they found something, they found a shaft under the Sphinx or whatever, this or that, or something like that, and then nothing comes out about it, or people have said that they've seen his people when it was under his control at night, like investigating things
Yeah.
or digging or stuff like that. So some untrustworthiness stuff, I guess.
Well, I know that he's putting on or lending his name anyway to archaeological tours in Egypt,
Hmm.
along with the former first lady of Egypt, believe it or not,
Really?
Anwar Sadat's wife. Yeah, and so they have this sort of thing, which looks great. It
Yeah.
looks like a great tour. But with COVID and everything,
Yeah.
I mean, don't want to try it.
Exactly.
Um, but I don't know who the current minister is over there.
I'm not sure. He's a younger guy, and he's a lot more allowing of people to go and explore places that weren't really previously explored. Tanis is a location that's couple it's like about 100 miles or something like that, or maybe even less away from the Great Pyramids. And this is a place that it looks like a Martian surface. It looks like a bomb was dropped there, and these ruins were found. These giant megaliths found buried under about 20 feet of sand and rubble and stuff like that. Nothing's growing there, and it's near a military area. So if you're on a tour there, there's guys walking around in black suits with MP5K submachine guns underneath their jackets.
Mhm.
So places like that, it's really cool to see open up. But my thing is like with Zahi Hawass, when I watch Brian Forrester or Ben from Uncharted X or Praveen Mohan or Yusuf Awiyan who does these tours at these sites, they're not saying these are aliens. They're not they're showing you they're showing you they're showing you these stones that look like they were cut with some sort of saw or machine. They're showing you boreholes. They're showing you that are older than that look like they were done with diamond tip drills. Basically, they're showing you pottery that is so finely done out of granite and diorite, some of the hardest stones that are just and they look like they have things that look like they have centering points for lathes and CNC machines and stuff like that, like, or the closest that we can think of what they would be. But it's like they're not saying that these were aliens, and they're not even saying basically what I'm saying. They're just going to show you this stuff.
They're going by the data points that they
Exactly.
have, and they're saying, well, what could have been used to create this at that time?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And so people like Zahi Hawass, which is, you shouldn't be like this in really any field. This is what I'm going, what I was talking about earlier with academia and sort of their egos and stuff. Like he'll get like documented angry at people just for bringing up other ideas that don't fit directly in line with what he said and what basically the
Yeah,
Egyptology
which
encyclopedia books.
I think that's wrong.
Yeah,
I believe that ask questions. You
yeah,
know, it's okay.
exactly.
Um, and I don't buy into any of this, to be honest with you. I'm a straight
Hmm.
archaeological record guy, but at the same time, you know, when you talk about things being buried, there was a time during Napoleon Bonaparte's reign where much of the Sphinx was buried
Hmm.
under sand. You know, didn't even know what you know what completely was there,
Right.
and so who can really say what was without actually digging up these things and seeing what they are.
Hmm.
Now, there's also just some stuff that's really hard to support, you know.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I mean, I don't see a problem with asking questions,
exactly.
um, you know. But then again, we live in an era where, I mean, look at the controversy with Joe Rogan, you know,
Right.
recently with,
Hmm.
you know, so I don't know what to make of stuff, you know, things like that. I certainly don't agree with him
Yeah.
uh, on what he, you know, what he did, but at the
Hmm.
same time, that didn't really start what the controversy was over.
It's more about, it's, yeah, on that it's kind of more, yeah, everyone has their views on that sort of stuff, but it seemed to be more of just wanting him to be silenced. I mean, whether he apologized for one thing, then it was they just want to basically deplatform. Basically, the word that's tossed around is canceled. Um,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I'm not even going to say anything about that because
And wise you are for not. It's because it's you get into that treacherous territory. But the thing is that, I mean, what's wrong with asking questions? You know,
exactly, exactly, 100%. It's fun. It's, and if if I'm wrong, whatever, I'll show me the evidence. I'm glad. I don't care. Like,
oh, I've been wrong in my time.
yeah, and and you learn from it and stuff like that. But so the Egypt stuff, I mean, and on the subject of buried stuff like that, do you know of Gobekli Tepe in Turkey?
Yes. Uh huh.
Yeah, that's a super fascinating place. They dated the the Earth. It was I can't remember how they do it, but I think it was artificially or it was man buried it basically 12,000 years ago, is a timeline because they can date the Earth that's distributed all around and inside this area, which is actually only like 10% excavated right now. And I heard about this, I think, on Joe Rogan's podcast when he had either Graham Hancock or Randall Carlson on. And that's a super fascinating place too, because um, not to go super deep on this stuff, but there's carvings on these stones that show these people with uh, in this sort of field. There's these handbag looking things. I mean, it all ties into psychedelics um, and
Well,
and all sorts of stuff like that. I don't know how you feel about psychedelics and stuff, or if you like talking about that, but
I am far too old to be talking about such things.
yeah, yeah,
A younger version of me might have.
right, right. But so that stuff's super interesting. I mean, when you find depictions that are on there that basically look like and match depictions of things that are found on the other side of the world that are supposedly only dated to whether it's 3,000 or 6,000 years old. So that's just
Well, there was, I mean, the historical record is littered with really weird stuff sometimes that seems to suggest that contact didn't start with Columbus,
mhm,
globally. But I don't think anybody's ever made a really convincing argument about it, other than the Vikings with Ainsel Meadows in Canada, where you have a clear Viking, presence there.
right.
But there's also Saint Brendan, where apparently an Irish monk and a bunch of other monks crossed the Atlantic. There's also some really obscure, and I'd have to go back 40 years to find this stuff, but there was some really obscure reports of amphoras being found in the Caribbean in
Really?
a certain wreck, like a Roman galley or something like that, managed to end up over there.
Yeah.
Um, but even just the idea of plants, right, from Europe, leaves crossing the Atlantic and making it to somebody that's like, what is this tree? Where did
Yeah.
this come from? Just we are not as isolated as I think that some people have suggested that we are. Um, so I don't know, but at the same time, you got to prove it, and it's really hard. Like with runes up
Hmm.
and well, your neck of the woods up in Michigan and places
Hmm.
like that, where maybe you had some kind of Norse influence when the Vikings were around, or maybe some guy from Norway 100 years ago decided to confuse everyone. You
Right.
just
Exactly. And shout out Norwegians. I got a lot of Norwegian heritage in me. So that's pretty cool. I'm always down.
hey
I'm always
yeah
down for
up
the
up.
Vikings.
Oh, so you're one of the old school Vikings of the up there, huh?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, our last name was Ness, got shortened to Ness.
Ah,
My grandparents. I know my grandpa came. He came from Norway, and then my grandma's parents came to Norway. Obviously, my grandpa's parents as well. They moved to Chicago, and then everyone moved up to the UP. There's in the UP especially, it's a lot of Norwegians, a lot of Finnish, a lot of Swedish, and that's
oh
just
yeah, oh yeah,
completely ingrained in that culture up there. It's super cool. And I did the
yeah,
23andMe thing and basically confirmed all of it.
yeah. I'm a I'm a remnant of French colonialism in the United States and Canada,
Okay.
Quebec originally. So I know what you're going through. I know what you're about.
Yep.
And it's like, what is this heritage? What is this weird heritage? And I actually remember within my lifetime, um, people still speaking French, a dialect of
Yeah.
French,
Yeah.
French language here in Missouri, and I think it's still going to a degree. Very many of those people left, but I actually remember that, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, so there's cultural oddness going on,
I mean,
and
even my great grandparents. It's Norwegian. Norwegian for great grandma and great grandpa. It's best of far and best of more. So we used to call them that when we were really little, and well, that's what we refer to them now. But so yeah, just things like that. Norwegian dishes, a lot of sweaters from my grandma. Uh, just, I mean, I've got a pair of reindeer horns in my dad's barn. Uh,
we do not
shot
have reindeer here, sir.
right, exactly. Yeah, straight up from a Norwegian reindeer hunt
Yes.
from late or early 1900s. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by my culture. I hope to go to Norway soon because apparently I have a lot of cousins there still. My grandma, she used to go over there like once every 5 years or something like that and see cousins and stuff. But
So relatively recent immigration, then, right?
very, yeah, very
Yeah.
definitely.
Huh. Interesting.
Hmm.
Interesting. Well, mine's like 1640, but
Yeah,
um,
that's cool. That's a cool time though. That's a cool
yeah.
time period.
But, huh. Interesting.
Yeah, I
So,
lost you on video too there, John.
oh, I turned it off because
Oh,
I
okay,
was, yeah,
100%. No
I was
worries.
I was doing something that I shouldn't have out there, such
I
as
got you for sure. I got you.
smoking a cigarette.
Okay,
Uh,
for sure. No worries.
but is this working out for you, man?
Yep,
This interview, all right.
definitely. Yeah.
Um, okay, Upper Peninsula. Now this has had Scandinavian influence for a very long time,
Hmm.
like 1850s, right?
Yep.
Was when this started. So, what would you say has culturally been kept for, from that world? Um,
Culturally from that, definitely. I mean, uh,
Now, let me reframe this. All right,
okay.
the bratwurst. All right, so you're an upper Midwesterner. I'm a southern Midwesterner, and we all have the bratwurst thanks to the Germans.
Hmm.
We all have corned beef and cabbage thanks to the Irish. We've got all these things. Is there anything still preserved up there that harkens back to the Scandinavian world?
Um, Food wise, I don't know if you've ever have you ever had a pasty?
Yes.
Though, and a lot of people down here, it's crazy because Michigan is it's basically two different states. The cultural differences just between Lower Michigan and Upper Michigan are complete. They're vast. So people down here call them pasties. But that I'm not sure if that came from Norway, but that's a big thing up there. It comes from a lot of the logging and mining industry. It was just something that everyone cooked, easy to pack, throw it in your lunchbox, and it'll stay hot basically all day in the inside because it's just a pastry with a ton of meat, rutabaga, um, potatoes, and stuff like that. Um, Influence directly from Norway and Scandinavian cultures. De- I mean,
Rutabaga is pretty north.
yeah, rutabaga is pretty north. Definitely. Everyone up there, everyone wears flannels. Everyone has a Mackie, a Hootala, a Kukala, Toivonen, names like that, and everyone talks like that. You should hear my dad. It, it's like a cross between Canadian, like Canadian and some weird American thing. But um, Lutefisk. I think that's more of a
Lutefisk.
yeah,
Lutefisk. Yes, I know
yeah,
what this is.
100%, definitely.
Yeah.
Some people hate it, some people love it, but that was a big thing. All the baseball teams, most of the baseball teams, especially in local communities, baseball teams and stuff like that, they would go by the Finns or the Swedes. Uh, you'd see a lot of shirts that say Sisu and like the power of the Finn is the Sisu within and stuff like that. Um, so those are a few things. Directly Scandinavian, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what would class if those any of those examples classify as that. It's kind of Norway, especially. That's, and I know where apparently where my family is from. I've got old ancestry books from family reunions, and that kind of match up perfectly with what I found on my 23andMe DNA results. So I can see where in Norway, like Rogaland County, Norway, and near Oslo and stuff like that, where some cousins are. But a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting, um, kind of just older ways of living. It's a lot of farming, a lot of like small family farms, basically. Everyone up there has. So it's just night and day difference compared to like down here. It's sort of an older, not to like sound romantic about it, but it's sort of like an older way of life, kind of like a slowed down older way of life.
Oops, I messed up. Do you see
Okay.
yourself ever desiring to go back to that way of life?
Um, I I we joke about that all the time because it's like we tell people that there's a lot of people down here that go, "Oh, you moved away from the UP. It's so pretty up there. We go vacation up there sometimes. Yeah, my grandpa has a cabin up there. Why would you move away? Blah blah blah." And we always just like we always kind of giggle and we're like, "All right, go up there and live for a couple years. Tell me how the winters are. Tell me how you like 8 months of winter out of the year. Tell me how you um like having nothing around, and to some extent that's really awesome. I mean, like I said earlier, I can dirt bike anywhere, public land everywhere, nobody's bothering you, no light pollution, no hum of an interstate that's a few miles away, no one bothering you basically. But then the trade-off is you're it's a ton of basically hard labor. You have to drive far to get anything. The seasons are harsher. Summertime is nice, but you're only getting, I'm not even joking, you're getting probably 2 weeks of like the swimming weather that people love all around the country, like upper 70s, 80s, sunny, nice, perfect. Ton of overcast. A lot of the climate is a lot like you see on shows like History Channel shows about Alaska and stuff like that, which is super interesting. A lot of the nature and trees and stuff are the same. A lot of pine trees and stuff like that. We have moose up there. Um, it's kind of like an older way of life. That's why I said earlier, it's like that old Yeller book, but a little more northern. It's really like that.
But it's a more visceral way of
Yeah.
life. It's
Hmm.
more real. You are in complete contact with reality every day.
Yeah.
So, do you think that compared to somebody that lives in where climate doesn't, you don't really have seasons,
Hmm.
a place like Los Angeles or something like that, do you think it's better?
I That's interesting you say that. I do. I think that for a certain time period, I if I have kids someday, which I hope to have, I want to raise them like that, and I wouldn't be opposed to moving back there to raise them like that, because what I got from growing up there, um, was just, you can't put a price on it. You can't put a price tag on it, and it was hard at the time. It feels like it's hard, when you're working out there, when you're literally farming at like 10 years old, and you're doing this, you're hunting, you're feeding the hogs and lambs every day before your hour ride bus to school when it's 30 below zero and stuff like that. But then you move somewhere down here, and I went to high school for 1 year, my senior year down here, with a class of 700 kids in my senior class, whereas up there my graduating class was 35 kids, and the
35 kids.
35 kids, and the entire school, K through 12, which was all into one school, was a maximum of like 500 kids probably. So less than one graduating class at this school I went to. And just seeing the difference in attitude of the kids, my peers that I would go to school with, just from 1 year down here and meeting the kids like that, it was just their attitude and their respect for elders was just awful. It was just,
Really?
yeah, oh, awful. Like, I don't know if it's like that in other places, but I mean, just disrespectful, basically spoiled for lack of better terms. Doesn't like don't know how to put a good days of work in. Like, I come down here, and if I'm working a labor job or something like that, building pools, working at Pepsi as a merchandiser, working construction, anything like that I've done, I've always, and I'm starting to appreciate it more and appreciate my upbringing, because, and my brother and I talk about this too. It's like we always get like pats on the back, like, oh my God, this kid knows how to work. Like, who are your parents? Your parents raised you right. We can't find anyone who wants to work and put in the effort and stuff. And it's just
Yeah.
like second nature to us. It's like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do. Like, so I mean, that's kind of a big thing that I've noticed. I don't know if that's like that in other places, but, and
Oh, it is.
I'm not even in a, it's not even like a rich, like a rich white suburban area. It's kind of, there's still fields around and stuff like that, and there's still some farms, but it's not the same. It's not quite, I don't know. It's a lot of the respect stuff kind of messes with me, because I would never talk to my parents the way that some of these kids do. I would never talk to elders. I would never act or be seen the way some of these kids do. Um, and
You know though,
my mom
you know
teaches
though,
too. And go ahead.
though, this was also a problem 25 years ago when I was your age.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got upbringings of different types, and some people value other things differently than everyone else. And I was like you. I believe in, the older a person is, the smarter they are, and the more
Hmm.
experience they have in life, and they can give you insights. So I was always very respectful myself, but I knew people that weren't,
Hmm.
that were rebellious and wanted to go and, you know, just basically go crazy and
Exactly.
give the finger to the older generation.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
now that I'm becoming the older generation, it's like this doesn't have to be,
exactly. 100%. No, I agree. And it's like, yeah, some people, like you said, some people value other things more than other people value things. So it's like down here, you might have, yeah, you have this nice house. You're in a little you're in a subdivision with your big nice house, and you got your car, but
Yeah.
you're a jerk and you have no friends and you barely talk to your parents. You barely have a relationship with your siblings, and it's like that's why when people look up to rich or famous people, and I heard this from Brian Keating. He said
Hmm.
it on Lex Friedman's podcast, I believe. He said that something along the lines of if you want to be someone, like if you want to be Brad Pitt or whatever, then you should want to have everything, the good and the bad. So if you want to be rich and famous, you want to be Bezos, you want to be Jeff Bezos. Well, guess what? He might not have the best relationship with his kids. He might have all
It's
this
true.
other baggage too.
It's
So
it's true.
right.
You give up certain things,
Hmm.
when you do certain things.
Yep.
Um, but the thing is that what's super important, and I think I would bet you that, I mean, you certainly already know it, but I would bet Lex and, Joe Rogan know this too. You can't lose your humanity with success. You have
Mhm.
to connect back to people,
Right.
or else your existence doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And that's sort of a little nugget of wisdom I've found, was that don't change, you know.
Definitely. And yeah, I've watched a lot of stuff. I mean, yeah, whether it's so-called YouTube gurus or whatever. I mean, there was this one guy. His name is Jay Shetty. He was a guy who worked as a CEO basically for Google, I believe, and then kind of like and wanted to be this entrepreneurial billionaire guy and whatever. But at one point, he's like, "This is making me unhappy, depressed.
Oh yeah.
All the people I'm around are miserable." And it's like if you want the result that they have, you have to be willing to go through the journey, like, of all that, and give up these things. And so that's why it's so hard when it's so rare when you see like a actor or a billionaire or someone that's super super down to earth and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, they kind of fall into two categories. Sometimes they are down to earth, and
Hmm.
sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But the point is that you know you can't let your ego rule your life. You
Hmm.
have to eliminate the ego and talk to people. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
uh, so I make a point with what I do is to always read comments. I read every single one,
Mhm.
and just chat with people, in the comments. And here I am with you.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I appreciate it.
don't be a dick. That's
Yep.
the old adage. But I've sometimes that's not the case. People get all Hollywood,
Yep.
things like that.
And,
Now,
and oops, sorry. But another thing, even if you're interacting with someone in the comments, say someone drops a dick comment, and then you respond to them, then a lot of the times their tune changes and they're like, "Well, I was just kidding," or
oh
whatever, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
yeah.
It's like, were you
So
just having a bad day?
do you deal with trolling yet?
My one video that I have with Brian Forrester, I mean, Brian is kind of a guy that he doesn't he's kind of a one word answer kind of guy. So it was kind of hard to
Oh yes. Oh,
yeah,
trust
hard
me,
to do that.
I know what this is.
Yeah, so I was talking a little too much and whatever, said crazy a little too much. So someone in the comments or whatever does all this guy say, all this guy says is crazy or something like that. And I'm like, I responded, I'm like, appreciate you watching, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to continue to improve on my interviewing skills and my YouTube skills in general, but whatever, blah, blah, blah. And just kind of whatever. And he was like, then responded back, sorry, man, I didn't mean it, like, whatever. Just like I said earlier, it's kind of, and I take all that. It's like, I can deal with it. I'm fine. I mean, some people can't. I mean, I don't know. I'll take it. I'll take it on the chin. It's whatever.
Oh, you're going to be good at this.
Appreciate it.
You're definitely going to be good at this. You just got to. We're all human.
Hmm.
And when you contact somebody for an interview, just assume that
Hmm.
and go into it honestly, you know, and ask the questions that you think the serious listeners are going to be interested in.
Right.
And you got it. And you're there. You're 90% of there.
Appreciate it. Really appreciate that. This is this is honestly, yeah, this is like, when this is over, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I can't believe I just was able to talk to John and stuff like that.
I am not that important.
Well, to a lot of people you are, so this is really cool. And I think it's really cool
Yeah.
too, because I'm just like I said, my channel is at its infant stage, and like infant stage. So it's cool for other fans too, to see just a normal fan be able to ask you these questions, or whether it was my last interview, because I don't know, it's super meaningful, and it kind of it kind of humanizes the sort of like, because whether you think it or not, I mean, YouTube people, they're kind of the modern day celebrities. I mean, I would rather talk to you
Uh,
over Matthew McConaughey or something like that. I
yeah,
mean,
but the thing is, the reality is that I don't believe in treating people any. If you're gonna give me the time of the day
mhm,
and watch my content, I'll talk to you. You know,
mhm,
it's super important not to become a jerk. You
right,
know, and become this sort of, I don't know, put up a brick wall. Between
right.
you. I hate that shit.
No, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I just want to be real. Like,
Yeah, be real, and that's the key to YouTube.
mhm,
Be real. Be that person.
yeah,
That don't act. Be that person.
exactly.
And well, obviously, we're sitting here. But it's when they think that it's when people think that they are something they are not.
Hmm.
Right, based on a YouTube channel, which I have not come across this in science YouTube, by the way. Pop culture YouTube, yes, but in science YouTube, everybody's down to earth. But there are no prima donnas or anything like that. Um, but it's when you think that you're something better than everyone else
Hmm.
is when you lose yourself. You know.
Right.
So I'm thinking, hopefully, if we are the celebrities of the modern age as YouTubers, we leave a way better impression than the Hollywood celebrities did.
Oh,
I hope. I hope anyway.
I think that's happening. I mean, like you said, if it's more pop culture stuff, it's even garnering, even if they're not a super massive channel, even garnering a response or a like for a comment is super hard. That's why, I mean, it's super cool when a channel like you, or Kurt from Theories of Everything, or Brian Forrester, or David Kipping, or any of these guys even throw a like down at you and acknowledge that they read your comment. I think that's really cool. And some of these podcasts or channels won't even do that. And it's kind of like you were saying before, if you're not being real, that's, I know I can usually tell when someone's not being real, and it's hard for,
BSing you.
yeah, and yeah, and most people, and I feel like most people can, but then even if you can identify other people that are BSing you, sometimes it's, you're not recognizing that you're kind of the BSer. You're kind of, if
You
you're the one
know,
that's BSing, you know what I mean?
that's the story of my life. I do not want to project in any way that I'm not that guy,
Yeah.
you know. And I am that guy, you know.
Hmm.
And but what I don't want to do is sit there and tell people that I'm something that I'm not.
Right.
I'm just a science fiction author that dropped out of college and doesn't have a degree and just found a little niche, you know, and
Exactly.
got lucky, got lucky, you
Some
know.
luck.
Um, One of the last things my dad told me uh, before he died,
Mm.
he was watching my channels, you know, Event Horizon and the JMG channel, and he's like, "Boy, people really sure like the sound of your voice." And I'm like, "Yeah, apparently so." And he's like, "You're welcome."
Oh, I love it. Oh, your dad is a legend, it sounds like.
My dad was, yeah. Well, I was raised well too. You know,
That's
two
good.
parents, and they're both gone, unfortunately, recently.
Sorry about
Uh,
that.
but you know, it that is life.
Mhm.
But it's super important to um, it's super important to remember how to deal with other people. You know, and how to deal with people on a reasonable, equitable basis. And if
Mhm.
you do that, your life goes better. You know. But
Mhm.
if you're a jerk or you try to make problems for people, then people are less inclined to help you solve problems, right?
100%. And
So I
I believe in karma too, like whatever you want to call it, but kind of what goes around comes around, even when no one's looking too. So, and just doing the right thing basically, and being real, and in everyday life, even if I'm not, it's not, I'm not only trying to be real with you or be nice or whatever. If I'm in a store or walking down a street or a sidewalk and it's just me and some random person walking by, I'll still say hey or whatever, or help someone that needs help doing this or anything, or engage in a
oh
conversation.
sure,
It doesn't
yeah,
have to
it's
be,
wonderful.
I don't have to gain anything from it.
Do
So
you think? Do you think being that way? Now we have an understanding. We've just discussed this, and we
mhm.
have an understanding, an inherent one. Do you think that makes life more enjoyable to you?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Yes, 100%, because it just the just enjoying talking to people. I mean, you can ask my brother, you can ask anyone in my family. If I'm in a convenience store even, and some people think this might be rude or whatever, but if I hear the clerk or someone in the store and they say something and they have like an accent, just an example, I'll be like, "Hey, where you from?" or whatever, and they'll kind of get, they'll be like, because it feels so weird today, especially with phones and stuff. I feel like I have an old soul because nobody talks to each other. Nobody engages. They think it's some crazy foreign thing or you're some creep or weirdo. It's like, and then you talk to them, you break the ice or whatever, and then you have a great conversation. I remember leaving some store, asking that question, like, "Hey, that's a cool accent. Where's that from? Where'd you grow up? Whatever." I heard like this dude's life story of moving from Bangladesh to here, and then he's telling me about his daughter, and then he's pulling up pictures of his trip to Egypt, even, and stuff like that. So it's, you learn so much from people.
And you find out fundamentally once you get past the language barrier,
Hmm.
we're all the same.
Oh, 100%, 100%, exactly. He likes MMA fighting too. He likes the food. I love asking people. Uh, that's why I had some silly questions. It's like, what kind of foods you like and stuff like that, because it's genuine, just a genuine curiosity. And I like having fun too. Like it doesn't bother me if I was interviewing Joe Rogan or someone. It's like I'm not gonna put on some fake face to appease anyone. Like your question earlier with where do I think the YouTube channel is gonna go, or what's the end game? Right now, it's just enjoy it, have fun, talk to people I'm really interested in, and people who talk about the things I'm interested in. So it's just being real.
Have you ever tried the McDonald's McRib sandwich? Answer within 2 seconds, sir.
Nope,
What?
no, I haven't.
Oh man.
I feel like a fraud. Is it actual rib meat or
Oh,
what?
I think it is. Yeah, it's pork rib.
Okay,
But they give it to us occasionally, where we can get the McRib,
yeah.
and then they take it away shortly thereafter.
devilish.
devilish,
We,
but it's
we
actually pretty good.
I'm gonna try it. We have the same thing too. I mean, if it's countrywide or not, I don't know. But yeah, they'll release it. The McRib is back, and I guess I don't go to McDonald's enough, or never had a hankering for it. I just recently tried the McGriddle, which was pretty good.
The McGriddle, I don't know that I've actually had that. That's the waffle type thing.
Yeah, it's like a waffle or like a thicker pancake with like sausage and then egg, and then like the syrup is sort of soaked into the thing. But it's pretty good. It's too sugary for me. If I'm gonna eat it, it needs to be like a dessert, but you can only get it in the morning. But I had on the rib thing. I had ribs last night. I got home from work, uh, picked up some ribs, a half a rack at a little food market on the way home. Ate the ribs, and then was out in the barn wrenching on my car, which still didn't work. I put a new alternator in it. Thought that was the issue. Didn't work. Bought a new battery for it. Still the same issue. So now it's some electrical issue that I didn't need to
Oh
even
yeah,
spend $600 on. So yeah, but ribs, yes.
yes, the McRib. If they didn't tease us with it
Hmm.
and move the location, it would be one of the great sandwiches. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't get that kind of access to it. So, and somebody has told me, and I don't think there's any truth to it, but they told me it's dependent on pork prices, bulk, prices for
Yeah.
like pork shoulder. But I don't know that I buy that. I don't know.
Interesting. And I'll tell you, back at the farm, we raised our local butcher would tell us too, because we did really well. I'm not gonna lie. We didn't raise our hogs or lambs on concrete slabs like even some people in the 4-H livestock council would do near us and bring to auction and have sold.
Oh,
We
that's
would
interesting.
we would change pens on our property. We'd rotate the pens so they had fresh landscape, trees and that stuff, uh, big mud holes and ponds and stuff, fresh grass, fresh everything for the hogs to root around in, for the lambs to graze on, stuff like that. And then we'd bring our hogs to the butcher. That's another thing too, whether it's you think it's gruesome or not, or you're someone watching from PETA or something like that. But um, we raised from piglets or little lambs to full grown animals, slaughtered them ourselves, and then sometimes we would dress them ourselves, but usually we brought them to the butcher, and he would tell us that we have some of the best looking meat, some of the best tasting meat that he's ever seen. And I think it's literally just from putting in the extra effort and letting these things like
Natural.
natural, yeah, live a good life, a nice
Oh,
natural
it
life.
certainly
Yes.
works for eggs.
Oh yeah.
A farm raised real
Hmm.
egg is significantly superior to the huge, industrial
Yeah.
farming methods.
And you can even tell the when you look at the yolks, a lot of the farm raised eggs, there's a richer, deeper, darker yellowness, orangish.
Oh,
I'm also colorblind, but it's like a darker orange yellow yolk that's just way more richer, way more nutrient. Yeah, I love that stuff. So I that's something I miss too. We always talk about if I did move back, we would definitely raise some hogs, but and lambs and chickens and stuff. But I love it
well,
all.
and the idea that you can go, which is something I do, and get local butchering,
Hmm.
of local livestock, and it is so much better. The beef is so
Hmm.
much better, you know, um,
It's night and day, really.
and it's better for the animals. It's better for the
Yeah,
animals. So if you're gonna be a meat eater, you really should try to find
and,
the farmers
yeah.
that are doing it
And
naturally.
if you know the science behind it too, and you know that they were their lives were ended correctly and they were slaughtered correctly. It's these or these mass raised ones and chickens and steers and stuff like that. These things get corralled. If you're at a mass produced place, these things get corralled. Their adrenaline's pumping through every part of their body. They're scared. They're literally scared. Um, and that makes the meat taste completely different. And when you do it like how we did it at the farm, you do it the right way. I won't go into detail, but you do it the correct way, no suffering. You you drain the animal correctly immediately after. There's no extra adrenaline. It's not being corralled. It's not seeing its basically friends and family getting slaughtered through on a concrete slab in front of them. It literally makes a difference.
Well, it's oh, it makes a difference, of
Yeah.
course. And then also, I mean, proper feed, like
Right.
with the chickens, you
Hmm.
know, you give them nutritious, good food, you get good eggs, and
Hmm.
you get, a much better product. So I try to source that stuff as much as I can,
Yeah.
and as far as I can. But it's hard for most people, it's hard. So where would you say, as having grown up in this environment, somebody that wants that sort of humane treatment of the animals plus quality, how would you advise somebody to go and find that?
To go and find it, quite literally, just same thing we were talking about before with basically people skills and just being nice and real. Literally find out where the rural areas in your area are. Drive out, find some farms. You see cattle at a farm, a nice looking farm. You see hogs, you see lambs or whatever. Go up their driveway. Go knock on their door. Talk to the owner. Talk to the wife that's in the house. Ask them, hey, whatever. Ask them, hey, is there anywhere I can get farm raised, whatever. Ask literally anyone, and 9 times out of 10 they'll be like, oh yeah, John down the road, Bill down the road. He sells whatever. He'll hook you up, or we'll hook you up. And uh, not all the time, but most 90% of the time, these people are raised like you and I. They're I guess more down to earth. They're more real. They'll talk to you. It's more of an older sort of older sort of attitude. So literally just if you can't if there's nothing that's striking your eye when you look it up online or something like that, or there's not a farmer's market that brings in quality meat and you can tell, literally figure out where the local farms are, where the fields are. Drive out there, take half a day and go do that, and it'll say you can go buy half a steer, you can go buy half a lamb, you can go buy full lamb, full steer, fully processed. Fill a chest freezer and be set for like an entire winter and just have the best quality meat.
So deep freeze. In other words, get a nice deep freeze, keep it
Hmm.
at low temperature. But the thing is, do you save money by doing this?
Yes, 100%, 100%, 100%. You'll save money. And your return for the money you spend on it is greatly improved because it's just a quality product. I mean, and to raise, even to raise one, if you're looking to raise, say, a hog, even, which is everyone loves pork, and if you want to do it right, it costs $50 for a piglet, right? Usually $50, a good looking piglet, and it's something crazy. It's like $20 for a 100-pound sack of feed, and you only go through from the time it's a piglet to the time that you slaughter it. These things grow fast. It's not like you're keeping a one hog for years. You're
Right.
slaughtering it around 300 pounds, 350, 400 at the top. And if you're any higher than that, if you're like 500, you're looking at something that you would use for breeding, like a sow that you would use for breeding. But if you want to do it, it's just it's it's like a few $100s basically, um, to raise this thing, and then you have hundreds of pounds of meat, of edible, delicious meat. And I mean, so we would raise these things on the farm, me and my brother and my dad, and um, we'd do all the chores, we'd do everything, we'd even castrate the piglets. The few times that we had sows that we bred out, which is a whole crazy different story. But you have to buy the boar semen online, and then it's an ugly thing. But
Oof. Oof.
yeah, artificially inseminating um, the hogs. But it's on. I remember even 1 year, the winters up, for example, the winters are so harsh, and we had a fully insulated barn, as insulated as a barn could be, hay all over these, all around them. It was so cold one winter, and the mother was not a good mother to the piglets. We lost like 13 piglets, and being up there and just the culture, We brought them in paper bags on the bus to directly to the science class the next day, and everyone just dissected them. So, I mean, nothing was wasted. Um, I mean, I don't know. I'm rambling, but yeah.
Visceral realities of life and
Yep.
existence. Yep.
100%. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break.
Yeah. Alrighty.
I'm going to be right.
Video,
Nice.
which you can see behind me.
Cool.
I have all sound baffles and shit going.
Yeah. What other instruments do you play? I see the piano.
Oh, piano, guitar. That's what one of the things that I originally was a musician. So
Really? My
yeah,
brother is a
violin.
musician as well.
But I I I went into YouTube inadvertently
Hmm.
because I always had an interest in science, and there was a lot of misinformation about KFC 8462852 or Tabby Star, as you asked me about earlier.
Right.
So I was like, I'm gonna make a science video and plug my sci-fi novels, and that's what I did, and it exploded. So
Boom. And now we're here. Yep.
luck. But
No.
now I have a. I'm surrounded by acoustical foam, um, which I can probably show you some
Oh, wow.
how it works. And then if you're gonna build an audio studio, you need one of these,
Ooh,
which is an
big boy.
EVX 286 Plus,
Okay. Look at
and
that.
that's why my sound is
Phenomenal.
vibrant, vibrant, right?
Yeah.
286S, yes. And it's a microphone processor and doesn't cost that much. And then you can see there's my vodka supply when I need a drink during a particularly hard interview with somebody that doesn't talk. Um,
Yes.
and you can see my monitors, and there's you
Yeah.
and this sort of stuff. And then there's the mixer and all of this stuff.
I love
Uh,
it.
and behind the baffles are my garden plants, which I absolutely love gardening,
Okay. Yeah.
especially organic gardening uh, and heirloom plants, really
Hmm.
old ones. So I grow a lot of tomatoes that are hundreds of years old and things like that.
That's super cool. I did. I mean, I love that as well. We did that back at the farm, but just down here, I was able to do some of that as well, and like just the appreciation you get for that as well. Just growing your own
Absolutely,
tomatoes or
and knowing where your food comes from, which is why
Mhm.
I was asking those questions.
Yeah.
If you go into a store and you buy a tomato, you're buying a tomato that was bred to have a thick skin.
Hmm.
Number one, number so for transport, right?
Hmm.
And you're buying a tomato that is just designed to be in a grocery store. But if you pick it off the vine yourself, and you get a much better tomato,
Yeah.
just like the eggs, just like the pork, just like the beef.
Hundred
And
percent.
you're in control.
Hmm.
You're in control of your food. Um, so I'm very sympathetic to what you were talking about because I know what I'm eating. You
Right.
know.
And I get to that. You can't for people to live like they want to live right now. You can't. Not everyone can do that and stuff like that. And so if you don't want the prices at the store to be $30 for farm raised eggs for everyone to have farm raised eggs, then you're gonna have the
Yeah,
mass produced stuff that we have.
how do you
But
deal with that? You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
I mean, how do you keep the costs down?
And consistent too. Yeah, how do you keep the
Hmm.
costs down and consistent? Because if you have
Yeah.
it all farm raised and stuff like that, your milk one day might be $20 as opposed to whatever it is now, $4 or
Do you
something.
see that as the future, though?
The more organic people, and I don't know. I mean, I think this what's going on right now will last until until I don't know, until we're all dead or an asteroid hits us or there's a pandemic of some sort that actually kills like 3/4 of the population or something like that. Um,
What about this? I'm going to go into scary mode,
okay.
spooky mode. What about a pandemic of an agricultural crop like rice?
Where it just completely eliminates it.
Yeah, damages it because this happened. The French wine industry took a huge hit from a root louse
Hmm.
over a century ago, 150 years ago. And the only way they saved it was by coming up with grafting it onto rootstocks from the US from native grapes here, like
Really?
longform grapes and things like that. And yeah, there's actually a statue sitting in France dedicated to the state of Missouri for its root loss resistant um, roots. So if that can happen to an agricultural crop, and you can also look at the Irish potato famine,
Yeah.
and you can say, well, we haven't had a crop failure like this in over 100 years, but look at COVID.
Hmm.
We hadn't had a pandemic like this in over 100 years,
Right.
since the 1918 Spanish flu. So could one of our major agricultural crops undergo a pandemic and contract the supply so much that we're in trouble, you know?
I think that's
Uh,
possible.
yeah, so this is something that bothers me because I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah.
And people used to tell me, they're like, well, that can't happen. We're better than that. But COVID happened.
Right. And
We weren't.
that's one of the main the crop thing. That's one of the main storyline things in Interstellar is they can't grow hardly anything,
Yep.
and then they're down to growing this corn, and now their current species of corn is not even growing anymore, and they're having to burn infected fields basically, and this and that, and just running. There's no good farmers. That's another reason I like that movie too. It's a super cool. That is a scary idea. It really is. Honestly, I don't know what would go down. There would be That's another thing that I talk about too with my brothers. Like, there's a lot of people that don't know how you turn off the lights for a week, you turn off the internet for a week, you take away their power supply and their ability to just go to the grocery store and get anything that they want. And there's gonna be people dying. There's gonna be riots. There's gonna be people, and then you look say we got hit by like a solar blast that just completely wiped out all
Well,
all
um,
technology.
yeah, and that can happen both naturally and unnaturally.
Right.
So you can have a situation where the wrong solar flare that's pointed directly at us can really mess our day up,
Hmm.
or you could have a small nation state that decides that it wants to be a nuclear power and it detonates nuclear weapons at the wrong altitude,
Yeah.
creates an electromagnetic pulse, and that can take our power grid down.
I think the man you're talking about has been playing with those toys again recently. So that's something we should all be worried about, I think. At least be conscious of.
Well, it makes more sense to do that,
Hmm.
but we probably shouldn't talk about that because that'll probably get us flagged on YouTube.
Probably. Yeah. No, you're probably right. Yes.
And we can't mention the name of the person that's involved. But
No. Definitely not. No, we'll be banned off of all of the internet. There'll be
yeah,
no more of us.
we'll be on some other platform with 5 subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be on my platform with 5 subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Yep.
that's all I'll have left.
Yep.
But bad stuff can happen, and that needs to be said.
Yep.
Bad stuff can happen, and I don't think that we're really prepared for it. And we're definitely not prepared for the technology trap where people have to go back to farming.
No.
Most people have no idea how to do that, you
No.
know?
It would be it would be catastrophic. It would lead to, like I said, it would lead to a lot of civil unrest, I think, pretty quickly, just due to panic and stuff. People go crazy when they're panicked, and then mob mentality. Everyone There's so many factors that would play into that. It would get ugly quick. So I would have no issue moving to the forest by a little creek and living off the land. I mean, I could pretty much do it. I feel like, whether it's
Yeah.
hunting, fishing, setting traps, even primitive style traps, like stuff like that. And that's just stuff. I mean, my school in the UP, we would be learning. I remember fifth grade, for example, we went out on the multiple frozen lakes and learned to identify. We went tracking. The teacher brought in a ton of snowshoes. We went tracking. We would identify different scat, um, animal crap, basically, and we would set up.
Identifying animal crap.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, identifying which it was, identifying what the prints around it were. We would find owl pellets, and then we would take them back to school, and we would dissect them, and you'd try and rebuild whatever the owl.
Bones.
Yep, 100%. Yeah,
Yes,
you'd
I've
find little
heard
mice
that.
bones and stuff.
Yes.
So things like that. I mean, that's the difference. It's like we were doing that in fifth grade and outdoors and stuff like that. So it's just second nature at this point. It's kind of it would be hard. It wouldn't be easy. I'm not mountain man or whatever, but it would be more feasible than someone from down here, say, that you just threw up into the north woods or force them to survive like in tune with the land, basically.
So, if given the chance on Elon Musk's giant rocket, would you go to Mars?
Would I go to Mars? Is there a guaranteed return flight?
In his view, yes, there
Right.
is. Yeah.
They have to return the rockets anyways. They're going to reuse them apparently.
Yeah.
So, would I go? Are you talking first launch? Are you talking?
Okay. No.
Okay.
Um, let's call viability and stability. So,
Okay.
in other words, let's say these things work like airplanes,
Hmm.
and it's just as safe to get on one of his rockets and go to Mars as it is to hop a flight to Paris.
I think, if I'm being honest right now, I don't think I would. I just don't think I would. Um, Maybe because I mean, family's super important to me, like very, very important. So unless they were coming with, or unless I was old and everyone I knew was dead, I mean,
I'm heading
maybe.
in that direction.
I mean, well, I'll be here for you, man. Don't worry. I guess if it was, I mean, if it was like go up there for a year and then guarantee come back, but even that's super scary. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? I mean, I think it's incredible. Any astronaut that's ever strapped himself into a rocket and gone up, even to the ISS and stuff. But to go to Mars, traveling for months through space is just that's kind of scary. It would be incredible, absolutely incredible. But right now, if you ask me, hey, 1 week away, they're gonna launch. You have a free ticket to ride, whatever, and it's feasible and safe and whatever. I don't think I would. No. Would you?
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
I am an Earthling.
Yeah.
I